Chapter 1936. His nose was tall and straight, and his eyebrows were filled with electricity. He had the aura of an overlord. Looking at Su-yi, who was lying in the distance, the man in white had a trace of fierceness in his eyes. Could it be that someone else would come here? Whoosh! The white figure was like lightning, tearing a space crack in the sky. Then, his voice broke through the air, and a powerful aura spread out. He actually has two types of divine power. This guy, the man in white, had a strange expression in his eyes. He stepped into the air and looked at Su-yi, who was lying on the ground. After a long silence, the man in white shot out his soul pressure and pressed on Su-yi, but it was immediately repelled by a strong force. This force? Suddenly, the man in white raised his eyebrows and laughed softly as he muttered to himself. Well, you're the first person I've seen in so many years. If you were in another star field, you would have been dead long ago if you dared to expose yourself like this. Shaking his head, the man in white shot out a ray of light from his hand and lifted Su-yi up slowly. He then turned and flew towards a small patch of red forest. Above the fiery red, dense forest, the grass and trees were all red, attached to the continuous crimson mountain range. The vegetation was tall and had distinct roots. Between the steep mountain walls, huge leaves stretched out like a tree cover. The mountains overlapped, and there was a desolate and ancient aura everywhere. In the middle of the red forest, there was a small house built with the roots of the huge vegetation. Su-yi was lying on a simple bed built with the red roots. Billowing aura revolved around his body. Su-yi felt that he had not woken up for a long time. In his mind, the bright, mysterious light ball kept flashing with a strange light. In the heaven origin demon soul, Ling Qinxue was also undergoing the final refinement of the essence blood. Kid, wake up quickly. The iron soulfish shouted weakly. Su-yi, you should wake up too. Qi Feihong's voice was even weaker. The two voices in his mind, one on the left and the other on the right, kept calling him to wake up. Buzz, buzz. A sudden clap of thunder resounded in his mind. Lightning flashed within the mysterious ball of light, as if it wanted to wake Su-yi up. Ah! A painful groan burst out from Su-yi's throat, the sound waves rolling like thunder. Su-yi suddenly opened his eyes. What entered his eyes was a fiery red color. Thick plant roots formed the roof, and even the bed Su-yi was sleeping on was made of branches and leaves. It was soft, warm, and extremely comfortable. Slowly sitting up, Su-yi knocked on his somewhat dull and painful head. A trace of blood appeared on his pale face. It hurts. As he gradually opened his eyes, Su-yi could see that there wasn't a single part of his body that wasn't damaged. Tiny wounds spread all over his body. Even the slightest movement would cause him to feel a heart-wrenching pain. Hiss! Su-yi cried out in pain. Just what did I go through? Su-yi thought in his heart. He had the diamond body, but he still suffered such serious injuries. It was simply unimaginable. My meridians are severely damaged, and a few of my bones are broken. My wounds are still bleeding. Su-yi checked the injuries on his body. It was obvious that his legs were the most severely injured, but after some simple stabilizing and bandaging, they had already recovered. You've woken up. The white-robed man pushed open the door and entered. His heroic aura was overwhelming, and a mighty aura surged towards Qinlai. Su-yi saw the person clearly. His eyes flickered, and although there were a few strands of white hair, he could definitely be called a dragon among men. Who are you? Su-yi shouted angrily. He quickly put on the demon god battle armor, and the heavenly star shock soul in his hand spun rapidly. Starlight surged, and a sharp aura swept through the air. Su-yi couldn't help but be shocked. His soul sense could cover a few hundred miles, and the man in front of him was so close to him, yet he didn't know. It was obvious that the man's strength was extremely strong, to the extreme. I advise you not to use your vital qi. Little friend, it's better to take a look at your energy center before you speak. The white-robed man smirked, revealing a sinister smile. Silently, Su-yi subconsciously withdrew his hand seals and used his consciousness to check his energy center's energy center. The golden dragon force that was faintly lingering around his body was withdrawn into his body. He opened his eyes, and there were fluctuations in his body. Su-Yi realized that the fire liquid in his great void spirit sea had all disappeared, and the whirlpool in his Dantian sea of qi, which he had spent a lot of effort to cultivate, had almost stopped spinning. If he used even a little bit of his vital qi, the entire Dantian vital qi would collapse and dissipate. Huff! In a split second, Su-Yi supported himself on the bed. His face changed drastically, and he shouted angrily, "How can this be? What is going on?" The white-robed man placed a big basin of blood-red liquid on the table and sat down slowly. He crossed his legs, and his eyes were filled with admiration and playfulness. Ninth-level Origin Emperor realm, and you dare to break through the space boundary and reach the middle zone of space-time. You actually survived. You have some skills. You should be satisfied that you're not dead. Su-Yi was stunned. Breaking through the space boundary? Reaching the interlayer of the star field? What the hell is this? A chill and shock rose from Su-Yi's back. Su-Yi frowned and asked anxiously, "What is going on? I transmigrated? I'm no longer in the sky barbaric continent?" The iron soulfish was silent, and his eyelids were lifeless. He lay in the sixth profound gate and soaked in vital qi as he spoke softly. "Looking at the environment and furnishings here, you should have transmigrated. Thank goodness for the domain pearl. Otherwise, you would have died 100 times. His scalp went numb. Su-Yi immediately felt a chill, and his face revealed an extremely ugly expression. He didn't want to transmigrate at all, and he even suffered such serious injuries. Hey, what's with that expression? Even if it's the Origin Sky realm, it's not something that can be transmigrated just because you want to. You're really lucky." The white-robed man frowned, as if he didn't want Su-Yi to leave. "Who wants to transmigrate? Whoever wants to transmigrate can do it. I want to go back." After saying that, Su-Yi struggled to get up. A bone-piercing pain spread throughout his body. Su-Yi immediately grimaced and fell to the ground. The white-robed man sneered and walked over to Su-Yi and carried him to the bed. "Save your strength. If it weren't for your divine power, even if you weren't tortured to death by the space-time storm, you would have died from the heat in the Three Ravens region. You're already lucky enough." Su-Yi took a deep breath and spat out a mouthful of turbid air from his throat. He looked coldly at the white-robed man. Apart from the fact that he didn't know where this man came from, he didn't have any bad intentions. "How can I go back?" The white-robed man looked at the sky and laughed softly. "That's hard to say. With your injuries, you won't be able to recover in at least half a month. Even if you do, you'll have to at least reach the Origin Sky realm to have a chance. How are you going to go back? Just stay here for a few decades." Chapter 1937. A wave of despair and heartbreak welled up in Su-Yi's heart, and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Instantly, he exploded on the spot like a bomb and remained silent for a long time. The white-robed man whistled, his starry eyes filled with endless depth. He turned around and walked out of the door, leaving behind a sentence. "The juice of the fire essence vine on the table is good for your wounds. Take care of your body first." When Su-Yi opened his eyes again, the white-robed man had already disappeared. Looking at the huge blood-red vine, Su-Yi sighed heavily in his heart and clenched his teeth. "A few decades? Impossible. I must find a way to go back, and I must hurry back as soon as possible." Not only was there so much hatred, but there were also so many people who cared about him. How could he give up so easily? He carefully got off the bed and inched toward the table step by step. A domineering and fierce gust of wind rushed straight into his heart. Su-Yi could not help but frown. Waves flashed in his eyes, and he took a deep breath and stretched his palm toward the juice of the fire essence vine. Su-Yi, who was in an extremely depressed mood, was seriously injured. This was the first time he had suffered such a huge injury since he started cultivating. Sitting on the fire essence vine, Su-Yi touched the root of the fire essence vine with his palm. It was hot and moist, crystal clear, and seemed to be flowing with fresh juice. Su-Yi made up his mind. Since he was able to come, he would definitely be able to go back. He reached into the space bag and took out the domain pearl. The clear domain pearl, which exuded an ancient and desolate aura, was warm and cool. It was heavy in his palm, but it was incomparably quiet. The iron soulfish told himself that it was thanks to the domain pearl that he could survive in the space-time storm. I must rely on the domain pearl to go back. Thinking back to when the domain pearl released a strong light that enveloped him, Su Yi's brows gradually furrowed. The domain pearl looked ordinary, and there was no reaction when he injected Yuan Qi into it, but could save his life in a critical moment. How exactly can I activate the domain pearl? Su Yi clutched the warm bead tightly and pulled on his wound. He was in so much pain that his expression changed. After discarding these complicated thoughts, Su Yi's entire body returned to calm, and his firm gaze shot out explosively as he drenched the fire essence vine's juice from head to toe. Chila! The pain caused his entire body to tremble. All of his wounds immediately burst out with sizzling sounds, and bursts of white smoke rose from his wounds. The blood-red light surged, as if it was sucking in the most delicious food in the world. The fire essence vine's juice crazily drilled into his body. Suddenly, Su Yi's body shook like a bellows, and his chest trembled violently. The extremely hot juice of the fire essence vines went into his pores and turned into powerful energy that filled his divine meridians and went straight into the great void ocean. Su Yi knew that this feeling was because his body was being soaked in the fire essence vine. The high level of energy contained extremely surging energy, and his body and meridians were greatly restored after the cleansing. Without hesitation, Su Yi slightly adapted to the high temperature and took out 3 bottles of spiritual liquid from the space bag with trembling hands and placed them on the table. Buzz! After summoning the mysterious space, Qi Fei Hong also floated out. Qi Fei Hong's aura was weak, and he was panting heavily. Aren't you going to enter the space to recover? Su Yi's eyes were half opened, and he said in a low voice, "The space's energy was born because of me. If I enter now, the energy will be at its weakest, and it will take twice the effort for half the result. Moreover, the fire essence vine that the mysterious person gave me is quite useful." Fire essence vine? Qi Fei Hong leaned closer to the table and took a closer look. Instantly, a glimmer of light bloomed in his eyes. This is something that doesn't exist in the Tianyin continent. It turns out that there are really other worlds in this world besides the Tianyin continent. Oh my God! Su Yi waved his hand, and his eyes darkened. He was not interested in the world outside at all. There were still many things that he had not completed in the Tianyin continent. No matter how much he traveled to places outside the Tianyin continent, he still had to go back, and he had to go back quickly. The Longs and the Yuns. Su Yi frowned. His sister was still in the hands of the Yuns, and he did not know where Yun Jing was. The promises he made to Duanmu Xiaoman, Lu Ruoxi, and Qin Xue, and countless heavy pressures made Su Yi feel like he was sitting on pins and needles. Qi Fei Hong hurriedly raised his hand to block the attack as he said anxiously, "Master, don't worry, Master, don't worry, Master. I can go back. I can go back. I can go back right away. You heal first." After saying that, Qi Fei Hong turned into a wisp of light and entered the mysterious space again. Suppressing the sword will in his heart, the corner of Su Yi's eyes twitched, and a wave of anger rose from his heart. He opened a bottle of spirit liquid, and the rich qi of heaven and earth turned into the purest energy and entered his nose. If it was in the past, Su Yi could swallow half a bottle of spiritual liquid directly. But now that he was seriously injured, Su Yi only chose a small bottle of spiritual liquid. As the spiritual liquid entered his mouth, his divine black spiritual meridians suddenly swelled up as if they were filled with energy. Bang! Bang! His meridians and flesh immediately made crackling sounds like firecrackers exploding. Green veins crawled all over Su Yi's forehead like worms. Su Yi's eyes bulged, and a low groan of pain came from all parts of his body. The unbearable pain of ordinary people once again fell on Su Yi's body. Large beads of sweat dripped onto the fire essence vine, and he could not help but gasp and hiss violently. Green veins had already popped out on his hands. He raised his hands with difficulty and formed a mysterious hand seal. He collected his thoughts and forced himself to start using the Origin Supreme technique to slowly absorb energy from heaven and earth. Hang in there. I've been through a lot of pain. Sui, don't give up. Sui murmured in his heart. For the next 7 days, Sui stayed in his room and did not go out. Time passed slowly, and the Origin Supreme technique in Sui's body became smoother and smoother. The obstacles in the path of the technique were gradually cleared. In the process of recovery, Sui also had a deeper understanding of his injured body. Although his meridians were severely damaged and his dantian was almost shattered, he was lucky that he had the Golden Dragon bloodline, which protected his flesh from being torn apart in the space-time storm. With the help of the mysterious light ball, the few drops of mysterious spirit fire liquid that he had accumulated should be used for energy consumption. If not for the few drops of mysterious spirit fire liquid, the great void spirit that he had painstakingly cultivated would have collapsed. It's better than being crippled. Sui comforted himself. His mood gradually improved, and he calmed down. His aura became stronger and stronger. Above the void, the dry and hot air constantly released vigorous energy that impacted Sui's body. Sui's body was being reconstructed at a visible rate. At this moment, a slight sound of doubt came from a corner outside the room, but Sui did not notice it. Chapter 1938. Another 3 days passed, and Sui could feel that his injuries were mostly healed. But he was puzzled. He didn't know if it was because of his serious injuries or because of the environment, but his injuries should be healing faster than usual. 10 days had already passed, and his injuries were only half healed. Sui opened his eyes, and the dazzling red color made him look away subconsciously. Then he spat out a mouthful of turbid air and looked at his body. The small wounds were gone, and they were all healed. His body glowed with a jade-like luster, which was extremely dazzling. Sui twisted his neck. He knew that half of his internal injuries were not healed, and it was time to go into the mysterious space. Sui spread out his soul and carefully checked the situation within hundreds of miles. When he was sure that he was at ease, he set up the mysterious space and went into it. Suddenly, the house supported by the fire essence vines became vast, and the red shell exuded a milky white aura. It was as if it had come from the ancient times, and its momentum was so strong that it made people feel awe. What is this guy doing now? No, what's the matter with this energy? The man in white floated in the void, and his figure seemed a little vague against the sky. His face was dignified, and his eyes flashed with shock. Then he squinted his eyes, and an evil smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He's really not an ordinary person. I wonder which continent he's from. Is he also being hunted down like me? As soon as he finished his words, the man in white disappeared into the world. Another 3 days passed. In order to speed up his recovery, Sui, who was in mysterious space, soaked himself in a small pool of spiritual liquid and absorbed the energy of heaven and earth to the maximum extent. For a moment, wind and thunder surged in the world. Above the void, lightning flashed and thunder roared. The energy in the air fluctuated like the waves of the sea. The phantom tome of demons subduing, the supreme technique of origin, and the art of controlling heaven ran alternately in his body at the same time. At the same time, the phantoms of thousands of beasts crawled behind him, and their roars resounded through the world. Sui was experiencing the benefits of being reborn in the past 10 days. Facing death and life, the energy of heaven and earth stirred up a boundless storm, pouring onto Sui's body. The golden dragon roared, and the emperor sparrow shrieked. 10,000 beasts, dragons, and phoenixes overlapped. The entire space was filled with demonic chi, and energy surged. Awo, Guji! The beast's roar was extremely shocking, like thunder from the ninth heaven, piercing through the clouds and breaking through the sky, causing one's heart to tremble for no reason. In the sky far away, the The beastly roar was accompanied by the sound of sacrificial rites from the ancient times. Within the space, a terrifying temperature filled the heavens and the earth. The boundless void seemed to have no end, and flames filled the air. Resplendent fiery light splashed in all directions. It was as if divine chains were interweaving in the depths of the sky. Su-yi, who was calmly sitting in the small pool of spirit liquid, was like a god. Behind him, there were constantly tall and straight beast shadows. Chi Feihong and the iron soulfish were both shocked. Su-yi had once again entered the mysterious space after being severely injured. Not only had the mysterious space changed, but Su-yi's aura had also become more tyrannical. It was as if he was the overlord of the world amidst the demonic aura. The divine, profound spirit meridians released endless starlight through his skin. In an instant, the surrounding stars revolved and the sky surged. Rumbling sounds were unceasing. Su-yi's figure was constantly expanding and shrinking in the wind and thunder. His aura was incomparably shocking. This is too terrifying. Is this the power that a heaven berserker human can release? The iron soulfish was also witnessing Su-yi's transformation for the first time. When Su-yi was in the early stage of the Origin Emperor realm, his ability to communicate with the mysterious space wasn't shocking enough. Now that he had reached the 9th level of the Origin Emperor realm, the mysterious space seemed to be truly obeying this young human emperor. It also wanted to help the only miraculous young man in the world to soar. Gudong! The 4 beasts hovered in the sky. Once again, a white tiger, a giant bird, a giant tortoise, and a giant dragon coiled around each other. The radiance was boundless, and the auspicious clouds were floating in the divine light. A surge of heaven-suppressing power came from all directions. The aura within the space gradually rose to the highest point. That's the giant bird. Chi Feihong and the iron soulfish each occupied a corner. The iron soulfish naturally appeared in the form of a soul and didn't let Chi Feihong notice. He watched as Chi Feihong fell to the ground and kowtowed in the direction of handsome Su. The giant bird's eyes spewed out flames. The rolling divine flames seemed to burn everything in the world. The shadows intertwined and remained high above handsome Su. Dong dong. The iron soulfish naturally noticed Su-yi's position. Ripples appeared in his eyes as he lifted his chin towards Su-yi. Brat, who is this fat brat? The phoenix god? It can't be, right? Gasping, Su-yi, who was in the small pool, let out a shocking roar. In an instant, the wind and thunder rumbled endlessly. Violent explosions sounded one after another. Su-yi leaped into the air and landed heavily on the ground. An aura of disdain flashed across his face as his eyes shone brightly. I've finally recovered. Su-yi revealed an extremely excited expression. After more than 10 days of treatment, he had finally recovered. From his meridians to his flesh, Su-yi could feel that he had a greater degree of consolidation. The 9th level of the Origin Emperor realm was also more stable than any other level in the past. He definitely had the ability to break through to the Origin Ancestor realm. Seems like being severely injured isn't a bad thing. Raising his brows and clenching his fists, Su-yi sized up the mysterious space. After exchanging a few pleasantries with Grandpa Ginseng, he glanced at handsome Su and left the mysterious space. When he returned to the Fire Spirit Vine House, he sniffed slightly and could feel the intense fire attribute Yuan Qi in the air. The Fire Spirit Vine House was full of juice and energy. Although it was unbearably hot inside, it was also an excellent place for cultivation and concealment. The mysterious energy that kept drilling into his body made Su-yi feel extremely comfortable. After circulating the Origin Supreme technique, Su-yi's aura surged even more horrifying than before. Enveloped by a divine halo, Su-yi looked like a brand new person. Bang! With a slight push of his hands, a powerful fire attribute force pushed open the door of the Fire Spirit Vine House. The golden sun was extremely dazzling. Golden light appeared outside, and the intense heat caused ripples to appear in the air. "What a fierce light!" Su exclaimed in surprise. He didn't dare to be careless. He formed a hand seal, and water attribute energy enveloped his meridians. Using the Origin Supreme technique, he dispersed the scorching air and slowly walked out of the house. Sizzle. A sizzling sound came from outside. A white figure stood in front of him, bringing a huge, barbaric, demonic beast closer to the sun. After reaching the Origin Emperor realm, the desire to fill one's stomach was no longer that great. He stood in front of the door and looked at the white figure thoughtfully. Chapter 1939. Is this guy barbecuing meat for me? He had a thought in his mind. Could he be Duanmu, Qing Tian? Thinking of the white-robed old man in the bounded zone pearl, he shook his head and rejected this idea. Moreover, he had been recovering for the past 10 days, and the white-robed man did not disturb him. He did not seem to have any ulterior motives for saving him. You've recovered so quickly. To be able to reach this stage in 10 days, you're also a weirdo. The white-robed man did not even turn his head as he continued to barbecue the 3 suns in the sky. Are you hungry? He asked in return. The white-robed man placed the barbecue rack on the ground. Immediately, a heavy sound rang out, and cracks appeared on the ground. I'm not hungry. I'm just bored. I saved someone, but he didn't even talk to me. I can only find something to do. Sui could not help but be shocked. This savage beast was actually so heavy, but the white-robed man was lifting it as if it was light. Sui walked to the white-robed man's side and felt an extremely powerful spiritual energy crushing down on his body. He knew that the white-robed man was spying on him. He silently circulated the Tianyuan ancient scripture and coldly lifted the barbecue rack. The starry sky in his hand flew up and down, and soon the huge savage beast was dissected by him. Sui then took out the barbecue seasoning that he had not used for a long time and used the fire essence vine as a rack. Not long after, the aroma and grease of the barbecue appeared in front of him. The tempting aroma surprised the white-robed man. Sui handed a piece of meat to the white-robed man and said in a low voice, "Are you alone here?" The white-robed man took a bite of the meat, and his eyes instantly lit up. The fragrance lingered on his cheeks as he kept saying, "Yes, I've always been alone, but I haven't been here for long." Not long. Sui was a little disappointed. This answer was a little different from what he had expected. Immediately, Sui asked in a low voice, "Then how did you get here?" The white-robed man continued to eat the barbecue, and a deep look flashed in his eyes as he said in a low voice, "I came here randomly. I don't know either. It seems to have been blown here by a strong wind." After hearing this, Sui couldn't help but frown. The man in front of him looked at most in his early 30s, but the white hair on his temples was extremely white, giving people a feeling that it didn't match. As for how old the man in front of him was and what kind of cultivation he had, it was all a mystery and filled with mystery. The white-clothed man's words clearly did not believe him. Since that was the case, Sui did not directly ask who he was. "Is the meat delicious?" Sui asked casually. Licking his fingers, the white-clothed man nodded and said, "I didn't expect you to be a chef. I haven't eaten such delicious meat for many years." Not bad, not bad. Many years. The white-robed man paused and awkwardly said, "Yes, it's been many years. Ever since I started traveling to the star field, I haven't tasted such delicacies. The food in other star fields is simply terrifying. It's a catastrophe." Staring at the puzzled Sui, the white-clothed man said in a low voice, "Are you also a star field traveler?" Sui sneered and asked in return, "Can someone travel and get himself injured all over?" That's right. A 9th-level Origin sovereign dares to come out and run around. Quite like me. After hearing this, Sui sat beside the white-clothed man and looked at the 3 dazzling suns in the sky as he said softly, "Can you tell me about the star field?" The white-clothed man looked a little strange as he sized up the man in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Why don't you know anything? Where did you come from?" Sui scratched his head and looked a little hesitant. He shrugged and said, "I came from an unknown star field. Don't mention it. With an embarrassed smile, Su Yi glanced at the white-clothed man from the corner of his eyes, intentionally or unintentionally looking at the white-clothed man's reaction. The white-clothed man's eyes flashed with a trace of slyness as he laughed and said, "In that case, you're not a star-field traveler. You won't understand even if I tell you. By the way, how did you transmigrate?" Su Yi smiled in his heart. The two of them were at the stage of testing each other. In such a desolate place, no one would trust the other. Moreover, the cultivation of the man in front of him was unpredictable, and he had to be on guard. "I was also blown here by a gust of wind?" Su Yi raised his eyebrows, similarly hiding a trace of mystery and slyness as the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Immediately, the white-clothed man clapped his hands and threw the barbecued meat away. He curled his lips and said, "Boring. It's too boring." The white-clothed man stood up and looked at Su Yi as he walked forward. "This is the star field mezzanine. Every star field has a space-time mezzanine, similar to the space-time mezzanine, which is used to protect the star field from external disturbances." Su Yi followed the white-clothed man's pace. The white-clothed man's pace was not fast, but his figure was like a phantom. In an instant, he had rushed a long distance. Boom! A whirlpool rose under his feet as the rising Yao-100 transformation steps was activated. He rushed to the white-clothed man's side in an instant. The white-clothed man seemed to have discovered something. His eyes shone brightly as he turned his head and stretched out his hands. An arc-shaped soul pressure rushed over like an avalanche. Boom! Su Yi raised his eyes, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He quickly dodged to the side. Not good. At the same time, a fierce fluctuation swept through the sky. Su Yi immediately flashed out with the unparalleled dragon flash. The four soul shadows slashed out terrifying saber lights at the same time. With a stomp of their feet, the wings on their back trembled. The void suddenly trembled as a fierce, killing aura spread out from their bodies. After dodging the attack, Su Yi could feel the fire essence vines behind him exploding. The sky was filled with blood-red vine juice, and the void was filled with scorching heat. The white-clothed man raised his eyes, and an even more majestic soul aura swept out. Su Yi shouted in his heart, "What a strong soul energy!" At this moment, Su Yi did not think too much. Cloud Shadow, treading frost, hurriedly drew a line in the air, and the blood phoenix splits the sky in his hand erupted. A sharp screech sounded, and blood gushed out from the sky. The void shattered inch by inch as he rushed to the white-clothed man's side. Su Yi's eyes darkened. He wanted to finish off the white-clothed man in one fell swoop, but he did not expect his starry sky soul to be caught by the white-clothed man's 2 fingers. The white-clothed man's white robe fluttered, and arrogance rose in his eyes. His aura rushed out like a wave. Fuyao 100 transformation steps, the power of the white flood dragon god. "Who are you? If you don't speak, I'll kill you." The white-clothed man shouted. Su Yi's mind exploded. In front of the white-clothed man, his soul pressure felt like it was crawling. A soul pressure stronger than Xiao Man's. Su Yi exclaimed. Immediately, Su Yi confirmed his thoughts. Originally, he saw an old man in white in the domain bead. Chapter 1940. The man in front of him was not only handsome, but also not old. How could he associate him with the Duanmu Qingtian? Duanmu Qingtian, how long are you going to pretend for? The corners of Su Yi's mouth raised as he spoke in a serious voice. The man in white was stunned. It had been a long time since he heard someone call him that. His aura fluctuated a little, and his eyes shone. "What did you say?" The man in white was in disbelief. Su Yi was even more convinced that he was the Duanmu Qingtian. He immediately restrained his aura and opened his arms, indicating that he would not fight. Slowly landing on the ground, he walked towards the Duanmu Qingtian. With his back facing the golden sun, Su Yi's black shadow outlined a determined look. In his deep black eyes, light fluctuated. Su Yi said slowly, "Qingtian Sr., Xiaoman misses you." Ding ding. When the Duanmu Qing Tian heard the two words Xiaoman, his body involuntarily took 2 steps back. He shook his head, and his eyes flashed with a trace of vigilance. Xiaoman, Xiaoman, how did you know? Have you seen my sister? With red eyes, Su Yi's heart softened. He sighed. Do you still remember the promise I made with you in the savage demon forest? He slowly raised his head. He seemed to have aged a few decades in an instant. His bloodshot eyes were filled with sorrow. The Duanmu Qing Tian began to recall the events of the past. He suddenly laughed, and his voice suddenly became old. It's you. So this is what you look like. Su Yi nodded. He looked at the guide of his martial arts for a long time without saying a word. His nose turned sour, and he immediately bowed to the Duanmu Qing Tian. Boy, what are you doing? Beginner of martial arts. I dare not disrespect you. Su Yi's face was solemn. He had endless thoughts and longing for the man in front of him. Of course, there was another layer of relationship. The Duanmu Qing Tian was the younger brother of the Duanmu Xiaoman. In the Yuqian Palace, at the back of the mountain, in the Command Heaven Divine Palace. Once they returned to the Imperial Celestial Palace, the vassal elders gathered together and held an elder meeting. Duanmu Xiaoman, however, did not participate. Everyone was talking at once, discussing the gains and losses of the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. However, everyone chose to keep their mouths shut about Su. Do you think the big matter that the palace master is talking about is related to the Long family? Guyue sat at the head of the table. His kind face carried a trace of coldness as he looked at the people below him with a gaze that was unafraid of death. Palace Master Guyue, say something. You know Palace Master Duanmu the best. Stroking his beard, Guyue did not say a word. He recalled the numerous times Palace Master Duanmu had risked his life for Su Yi, and this time, the spearhead was directed at the Long family. Even if the situation inside was unclear, for the sake of Su Yi, Duanmu Xiaoman would still launch a crusade against the Long family. Are you afraid? Guyue's cold aura suddenly surged out of his body. The vassal elders looked at each other, their eyes filled with killing intent. Long Pasan stood up and said loudly, What a joke. Was the Long family? The other sects don't dare to say anything, but why should we be afraid? Yes, the Long family has always been a hegemon. From Duanmu Qing Tian to Su Yi, all the talents of our Imperial Celestial Palace will be killed by Draconis. Several vassal elders were filled with righteous indignation. At this moment, Jun Haoyan pushed open the door and entered. His eyes were filled with blood as he bowed to the elders and shouted, I'm not afraid either. Lung Wuning and Lin Shuamping immediately supported Jun Haoyan. Guyue's gaze softened. Haoyan, are you feeling better? Jun Haoyan's face was stubborn. His sharp gaze shot out as he supported himself against the wall. Palace Master Guyue, is there any news about Su Yi? Everyone was silent, and the atmosphere suddenly became cold. Jun Haoyan was slightly disappointed. Guyue said loudly, Palace Master Duanmu's mood won't be much better than yours. Everyone, cheer up. There will be a tough battle coming up. All vassal elders, listen up. Everyone's eyes were heavy and their faces were solemn. Long Pasan also looked like a great battle was imminent. All vassal elders, listen up. Yes, all vassal palace masters, go back and make the necessary arrangements. Enter a state of defense. Gather all the recipes, artifact recipes, and books of the vassal palaces. The Long family has been eyeing Imperial Celestial Palace for a long time. Now that Long Tsong is seriously injured, his life is in danger. Before Su Yi returns, the palace master will definitely choose to enter seclusion. Everyone, you must help Imperial Celestial Palace fight against the enemy. Don't distract the palace master. Yes. Long Pasan and Luo Wuya looked at each other speechlessly. All the palace masters were silent for a long time with ugly expressions. Dismissed. Yes. Before everyone left, Guyue specially said, Central Continent Palace Master, Lung Wuning, pay attention to the sacred mountain at all times. Pay close attention to the safety of Mu Yao at Xinjiang Gate. Vast Ocean Vice Palace Master, Lin Shuangping, Go to the Chaos region and send people to pay attention to the Bawang sect. If anyone touches the Bawang sect, remember to tell me. Then, all the vassal palace masters left Imperial Celestial Palace for their own continents. In an instant, the entire Imperial Celestial Palace was empty. The large conference hall was filled with a solemn atmosphere. The stifling air made Jun Haoyan feel a chill. Guyue's back was facing the door. His gaze fell on the hall, where countless important matters were discussed. His lonely back seemed a little desolate. Palace Master Guyue, does the Long family really dare to attack Imperial Celestial Palace? Guyue's bitter voice sounded. He sighed and laughed. Even if the Long family doesn't come, Imperial Celestial Palace and the Long family will fight sooner or later. Jun Haoyan's eyes trembled. He suddenly felt a mountain-like pressure on his body. His pale face was filled with killing intent. He was determined and resolute. Unconsciously, his fingers dug into the patterns on the wall. His knuckles turned purple. Do you trust Palace Master Duanmu? Haoyan. Yes. Then do you trust Su Yi? My life was given to me by Su Yi. Of course I trust him. Without hesitation, Jun Haoyan blurted out. Guyue immediately turned around. His hair was white, but his spirit was hale and hearty. His eyes overflowed with cold electricity. Good. Go back and recuperate well. Imperial Celestial Palace needs you. Right. Tell your master that it's time for Imperial Celestial Palace to invite those old immortals out. Thinking of his new master, the Grand Elder, his eyes moved. Pursing his lips, Jun Haoyan nodded heavily. He turned around and walked out of the door with crisp steps. After Jun Haoyan left, Guyue's long eyebrows trembled. His robes fluttered behind him as he shouted in a low voice. Since we can't come out, Imperial Celestial Palace will openly enter the world. We'll charge out and cause him to collapse. So what if the Sky Barbarians fall into chaos again? With a flick of his sleeve, Guyue's figure turned into a bolt of lightning and charged toward Imperial Celestial Palace at the back of the mountain. Imperial Celestial Palace, deep in the earth vein. The crystal shone brightly. Vast energy of heaven and earth swept through the air. The dense energy of the crystal shone on this ancient world. Chapter 1941. Duanmu Xiaoman's moon robe was clear and elegant. Her eyes were like mist, as bright as the Milky Way. She stared at the earth vein in a daze. Master, what do you think of my soul skill? That day, the scene of Su Yi using the peerless dragon flash in front of her was still vivid in her mind. Her bright red lips trembled. Are you going to disappear for a few decades this time too? Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes rippled like the waves in the deep sea. Once the words came out of her mouth, Duanmu Xiaoman could not help but squat on the ground, her hands wrapped around her knees, her delicate body trembling. Large drops of clear tears dripped onto the earth vein, causing the energy of heaven and earth to fluctuate incessantly. Duanmu Xiaoman knew that she had held on for too long. Even if Su Yi disappeared in front of her eyes, she was still telling herself, "It's okay, he will come back." But sometimes, silent crying was the most hurtful. Sometimes, the most hurtful lie was to deceive oneself and others. Duanmu Xiaoman had already forgotten how long it had been since she broke down and cried wantonly. From the time when they barged into Imperial Palace, to helping her suppress the chaos in Imperial Palace, to the time when they fought the blood-colored demonic dragon at the bottom of the Broken Sword Sea. Those scenes, one after another, were uncontrollable, tearing apart Duanmu Xiaoman's mind. Why? Why? Why do you have to fight so hard? I should be the one taking responsibility. I don't need you to help me. Duanmu Xiaoman lay between her knees. Her moon robe was wet and misty, scarlet blood slowly dripping from between her white teeth and red lips. Raising her head again, Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes emitted a chilly intent of death. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly as she muttered faintly, "Don't worry, I will come and find you very soon." Holy mountain, lush greenery, immortal clouds filled the sky. Spiritual birds spread their wings and circled between the mountains. Clouds rose, Milky white gauze separated the lofty mountains and precipitous ridges. The heaven and earth were enveloped in a golden aura of energy. The forest was lush, and under the pale yellow sky, the mountains were as bright as gold, solemn and dignified. The majestic and peculiar rock walls were dyed with dazzling colors by the golden light, and the overlapping layers appeared extremely magnificent. The river flowed, the black iron-like peaks reflected on the surface of the lake, like a drunken old man who had been sleeping foolishly for many years. Nine Saints Peak, Nine Saints Pavilion. The light yellow curtains hung upside down, sprinkling a trace of golden light through the slightly open window lattice. Ever since Lu Ruashi returned to the sacred mountain, she had never stepped out of the main door, locking herself in the door. Almost a month had passed, and Lu Ruashi had been waiting for news from the foot of the mountain every day. Gee. The spirit bird stopped at the edge of the bed and quickly spread its wings to fly away. Lu Ruashi rested her chin on her hand and stared at the vast and quiet world in a dazed and desolate manner. I'm free, Ji Duan. Her jade-like fingers clung tightly to the windowsill as an old voice came from behind her. Miss, Holy Mountain is in a mess now. You can't lock yourself in your room. Lu Ruashi's eyelashes fluttered, and she looked dispirited. Uncle Guan, I can't get interested in anything. She naturally knew that after returning from the Tianfeng ranking tournament, Xiehong House and Yuchi Changfeng had been seriously injured. After recuperating, the battle for the Holy Emperor was once again on the agenda. The two factions of Holy Mountain were like fire and water. If she, the next Saint Venerable, could lean towards one of them, then the Holy Emperor selection would basically come to a halt. The old man called Uncle Guan was the one who had come to save Barbarian City that day. His stooped figure stood outside the door and sighed deeply. The Saint Venerable has called you 3 times in 20 days, and he's here again today. You cannot meet him. Lu Ruashi's body trembled when she heard the Saint Venerable's name. She bit her red lips and said softly, Uncle Guan, I'll have to trouble you to buy me some more time. There was a knock on the door, and the sound of footsteps gradually faded away, leaving only a silent sigh. So what if he's here? Lu Ruashi's beautiful eyelashes drooped slightly, and her right hand clenched her index finger tightly. She looked into the distance again and said faintly, When we meet again, at least I'll still be yours. Shenzhen Gate. The steep mountain peaks pierced through the sky like divine swords, cutting through the void. In the middle of a winding and steep mountain ridge, a dark blue lake reflected the sky and a pair of clear eyes. Yao, didn't I tell you not to run outside? A graceful and elegant voice came from behind. Immediately, a beautiful woman wearing an elegant palace robe with her black hair tied into a flowing cloud bun leisurely walked over. Suruga's eyes were full of spirit, but there was still a hint of seriousness between her brows. Yao, don't you know that your master Sushin and I are very worried about you? Your life is no longer your own. Mu Yao's face was haggard, and her 10 days of uneasiness had made her face pale. She gently raised her finger and stroked the 9-hell snake. At this time, the 9-hell snake was huge, and its eyes were like will-o'-the-wisps. It was breathtaking, and its powerful demonic aura made people afraid to go near it. But my heart is very uncomfortable. It's all over the place. Mu Yao sighed softly, and her eyes were like water, calm and unperturbed. Master Sushin glanced at Suruga, pulled Suruga aside, and said softly, Is there still no news from the demons subduing sect? Suruga was also quite annoyed, and the corners of her dry mouth twitched. She shouted, If there's news, why are we still waiting here? Seemingly used to Suruga's temper, Sushin shook her head and walked to Mu Yao's side. Yao, you have the bloodline of the Golden Rock. You shouldn't be sinking day by day. Even if Su-Yi doesn't come, you still have important things to do. At least for Shenzhen Gate, for Su-Yi's Wang sect, you have to work hard. Suruga's aura exploded, and her eyes flashed with a murderous aura. She said fiercely, It will come back. There's no such thing as coming or not. Mu Yao frowned and looked up at the lake. Su Yi's words in front of the 100 Heroes Palace were still lingering in her ears. Standing up, Mu Yao said gently, "Elder Su Master, don't worry. I understand." Then I'm relieved. I've been back at Shenjing Gate for almost a month, but I'm still worried. I'll go to the demon-subduing sect and the chaos region to take a look. Before she finished speaking, Suruga's sword chi streaked across the sky, leaving a long trail of sword chi in the air. At this moment, Su Yi, who was far away on the horizon, still didn't know that almost a month had passed in the Tianyan continent, although he had only spent a dozen days in the Three Raven region's spatial mezzanine. Ever since the Tianfeng ranking tournament, Su Yi's name had spread to every corner of the Tianyan continent. The 5 aristocratic families, the Sacred Mountain, the Chaos region, and various sects had all sent disciples and spies to search for Su Yi's whereabouts. Within the Long family, Draconis was thinking of a more direct plan. The battle for the Sacred Emperor in the Sacred Mountain was in full swing. Yuchi Changfeng and the Xiehong House's final owners were not so much Lu Ruoshi, but Su. Chapter 1942. Sui. Many people were looking forward to his return. There were also many people who hoped that he would perish in this world. This name had already affected the hearts of tens of thousands of people and determined the future direction of several sections. At this time, the Chaos region also welcomed a great peak. Bawang sect. A huge symbol of a phoenix holding a sword was placed in the middle of the square. In the middle of the square, large groups of disciples were gathered. The blazing atmosphere of martial arts shook the heavens. All kinds of origin energy lights filled the originally small valley with multicolored light. The powerful fluctuations could be heard from thousands of miles away. After the Green Emperor and Yin Ming returned, they had been busy setting up the Mystic Gate Soul Formation. After the Tianfeng ranking tournament, a large number of rogue cultivators and cultivators from various continents came to pay their respects to the Bawang sect. On the high platform, the Bawang sect was already very large. Its might was impressive. 6 halls and 1 palace. All the people in charge, protectors, stewards, deacons, and inner and outer sect elders were gathered. Wang Zhengquan, Huang Jian, Green Emperor, Yin Ming, Dragon Rhino Emperor, Purple Elephant Emperor, Black Tortoise Emperor, and all the other beast emperors were gathered. Nangong Yue's gaze was solemn. She held an incomparably thick roster in her hand and said to the Green Emperor, "The number of disciples has increased explosively. Even if we sift through them again and again, there are still tens of thousands more people than before. The current Bawang sect already has 70 to 80,000 people in the 6 halls." Huh. The outer sect disciples below were fighting. The sound of origin energy ripples flew across the sky. The sound reverberated, causing one's blood to boil. Green Emperor's long and narrow eyes flashed. He nodded, took the roster, and said in a deep voice, "The number of disciples has increased explosively. Many sects are watching us. On this point, the Shadow Hall has to play an important role. We must carefully sift through them. There must not be any internal problems." Several beast emperors, including Huang Jian and Wang Zhengquan, nodded. Now it was an eventful time for the Bawang sect. On the surface, it was full of vitality, but in reality, there were turbulent undercurrents. Even within the Chaos region, although those second-rate powers didn't dare to invade, they still hoped that the Bawang sect would run out of luck. The higher you go, the further you climb. Green Emperor warned everyone. At this time, they had to be wary of being pulled down. The Green Emperor turned his head around and looked at Wang Zhengquan. There was a never-before-seen look of seriousness in his eyes. Now that Master isn't around, all the more we have to protect the Overlord sect. Do we have enough funds? Wang Zhengquan's face was solemn as he said, "Lord Green Emperor, don't worry. What the sect leader gave us and the 2 primeval or mines we recently discovered are enough to cover the Bawang sect's expenses for a few years." After the Tianfeng ranking tournament, the Bawang sect's reputation skyrocketed. We have already left the Blood Sun sect behind. The Ash Cloud Hall has been blocking the entrance of the Bawang sect. Our Bawang sect is the #1 power. Now, The Bawang sect is relying on the tributes from the second-rate sects and the income from the cities to maintain its operations. Huang Jian added, Tian Fu has taken the initiative to give all the income from the cities to us. As for the second-rate sects, Boundless Palace and Purple Shadow Tower, each gave us a city. The corners of the Green Emperor's lips curled upwards. If he were to count, the Overlord sect would have more than 10 cities. That would be enough. What about the strength of the members? Ming's oval face raised his chin slightly as his eyes were filled with seriousness. Ningyu bowed and pointed at the people below. There are around 3,000 Origin Void Realm experts and around 25 Origin Emperor Realm experts. They were all recruited. As for the Origin Ancestor Realm experts, other than a few Beast Emperors, Lord Ming, Lord Yangming, and Lord Green Emperor, there are basically none. Devouring Soul Emperor stroked his short beard and raised his cold eyes. Green Emperor, you know best about the Heavenly Beast sect. All the barbaric beast clans in the entire Chaos region have surrendered. There are 7 or 8 Demon Emperor Realm experts from various continents who have come here because of the Heavenly Beast sect's reputation. There are also close to 300 peak Demon Ethereal Realm experts. Although it's not high compared to the humans outside, it's much stronger. Ming revealed a mysterious smile. With such a terrifying beast army, the Bawang sect strength could be said to have increased exponentially. Our financial and manpower resources have already reached the peak. What about material resources? The Green Emperor crossed his arms and pondered. He looked up at the clouds in the sky. Ningyu was a little embarrassed and said in a deep voice, the Bawang sect was built with the Feng family village as the foundation. Now, there are suddenly tens of thousands of people. Not only is it crowded, but many facilities and resources are also lacking. Huang Jian and Wang Zhengquan, who had been managing the Bawang sect for a long time, nodded. Now, there were 60 to 70,000 outer sect disciples, which accounted for the majority. There were more than 10,000 inner sect disciples. In addition to the core strength, the entire Bawang sect was very complicated. The narrow territory is indeed a problem. Green Emperor shook his head. The rapid development of the Bawang sect was far beyond his imagination. He believed that even if Su Yi returned, he would be greatly distressed. The current inner and outer sect system has been perfected. How are the direct disciples? Ningyu continued. There are already 300 to 400 direct disciples. Most of them are at the Origin Void Realm. They are being trained according to the standards of a first-rate sect. The human race and the barbarian Yao race are placed together, and they are receiving the cruelest training. First-rate sect. Green Emperor and Ming seem to have thought of something. So you're all here. An old but vigorous voice came from the distance. A thin old man smiled, and a surging soul pressure attacked again. Green Emperor and the others said at the same time. Old Lei. The person who came was Lei Yunhe, the person in charge of the Soul Hall. Every time Su Yi returned, he would bring countless benefits to the Soul Hall. There were recipes, pill recipes, and all kinds of rare pills, which greatly enriched the Soul Hall's resources. The Soul Hall, which originally only had one person, had developed in a short time. There are now many soul controllers, alchemists, and tool refiners. That's right. Ming came to Green Emperor's side. The 3 of them nodded at the same time. Let's go in and talk. Green Emperor smirked and led everyone into the meeting hall. As soon as they sat down, Lei Yunhe's slightly hoarse voice came out. Is there still no news from the sect master? Everyone was slightly disappointed. Green Emperor saw this and waved his hand. He said loudly, the sect master will definitely return. Don't worry. The Long family, Yun family, and Sacred Mountain are our current great enemies. Master's efforts cannot be wasted. Lei Yunhe closed his eyes and shook his head. Green Emperor's words were very true. He then asked, what do you say? Green Emperor looked at Ming and said loudly, all hall masters and elders, please go back and count. Ningyu will count the people. All the top-ranked core disciples and inner sect disciples will be sent to the demon subduing sect. All alchemists and soul refiners will be sent to the heaven-commanding palace. Chapter 1943. Narrowing his eyes, Leuna stood up and said, Imperial Palace is a good choice. Demon-subduing sect? That's a top faction. Are you sure you'll accept us? Sect Master doesn't get along well with them. Yiming burst out laughing and said in a charming voice, Didn't you notice that this time there's someone who didn't come back with us? At this time, everyone realized that the two high consecrators of Bawang's sect and Yang Ming didn't come back either. The two high consecrators are waiting for news from Master in demon-subduing sect. Yang Ming is in charge of demon-subduing sect. Hearing this, everyone's eyeballs fell to the ground. They were so shocked that they didn't recover for a long time. Yiming gave a simple recount of what had happened at the gate of demon-subduing. The Beast Emperor and all the other elders immediately stood up in excitement. Lord Yiming, is what you said true? How is that possible? Demon-subduing. Did I hear wrongly? Unbelievable. With demon-subduing sect and Bawang sect, how can they still be the second strongest faction in Chaos region? We're now far stronger than Blue Cloud Hall. If it's true, Chaos region and demon-subduing sect will have the qualifications to go toe-to-toe with Sacred Mountain. Yiming and the Green Emperor smiled and nodded. The Green Emperor looked at the Dragon Rhinoceros Emperor and the others and said, Therefore, we need to conserve our strength and build two legions, the Overlord Legion and the Sky Demon Legion. The Overlord Legion will be divided into two groups. The core of the Martial Ancestor Legion will be gathered at the Demon-Subduing Gate, while the core of the Soul Ancestor Legion will be in the Heavenly Palace. The Sky Demon Legion will be personally selected by the several Beast Emperors. Dragon Rhinoceros Emperor, Black Tortoise Emperor, and Purple Elephant Emperor couldn't contain their excitement. The Great Demon Mountain Range was a paradise for demon beasts other than Barbarian Demon Forest. With this geographical advantage, the Sky Demon Legion would be able to grow stronger quickly. This way, we can achieve 3 goals. First, reduce the pressure from Chaos region. Second, we can make the best use of people and resources. We can make Bawang Sect's army the most terrifying force in the Sky Barbarians. Third, we can prepare our defenses and prepare for the Long Family and Sacred Mountains attacks. Green Emperor explained to everyone, Good, this is a brilliant plan. Leuna's eyes shone brightly. The Imperial Palace was the holy land in the hearts of soul controllers. To be able to use this opportunity to enter the Imperial Palace was simply fulfilling a lifelong wish. The rest of you, including me, will focus on developing the Chaos region and wait for our master's return. The Green Emperor said in a deep voice. Every movement of his was filled with a domineering aura. Yiming stood beside him, his eyes filled with excitement. Sure enough, Master was right. The Green Emperor could take on great responsibilities. Perhaps even the Green Emperor didn't expect that when he attacked the barbarian city that day, he would be able to achieve this. I will contact Palace Master Gyue and Yang Ming now and have them prepare to receive it. Yiming immediately walked out of the meeting hall. The rest of you, go and make your own preparations. The sect's general election will be held in the next few days. We will do the final round of screening and strive to let everyone participate. The resources will be taken care of by Ningyu. The Bawang Sect's foundation must not be lost. Everyone accepted the order. In an instant, the atmosphere in the meeting hall was pushed to the climax. When everyone left the meeting hall, their faces were glowing and filled with confidence. In the Buddha Flame Sea, the sky was filled with fiery clouds like intertwining divine chains. Within the endless fire domain, the waves of fire were like boiling water, surging up into the sky like an evil dragon pouncing on its prey. Between heaven and earth, just the heat alone was enough to kill all living things. At the edge of the sea of fire, on a dry rock, a man covered in lightning was crazily cultivating. A broad figure stood behind him, looking at Su-chan with a serious expression. Around him, thunderclouds and fire attributed Yuan Qi rose continuously. His injuries haven't healed yet, but he is still cultivating crazily. Will Su Chan be able to take it? Standing beside Yin Mietan, an old man in a loose robe with red clouds said softly, "Only hatred and regret can create a man's true awakening. Su Chen's innate thunder embryo has not been fully awakened. How can he master the ultimate thunder element?" Yin Tian's eyes twitched as he stared at Su Chan with a serious expression. Fiery red yuan qi circulated around his body, and his soul pressure was activated. He was paying attention to the changes in Su Chen's yuan qi. The first time, during the St. Martial Assembly, Su Chen used the innate thunder embryo true body to save the five brothers. This was the second time, watching Su Yi disappear in front of his eyes. What kind of new realm would Su Chen reach with that kind of frustration? Yin Mietian's eyes lit up with anticipation. He looked at the old man and said, "You don't need to worry too much. All right, have you found Yin Lin?" The old man's eyes were filled with disappointment. He said solemnly, "Ever since Su Chen returned to the Thunderfire Temple, we haven't seen him. How is that possible? Have you searched the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean?" Yin Mietian asked suspiciously. The old man said to Yin Mietian calmly, "We've searched everywhere. However, when Su Chen was born, the Buddha iron token you gave him has a reaction recently." "What reaction? Didn't this kid lose the iron token?" "That's a treasure that can allow an ordinary origin emperor to resist the pressure of the Sea of Flames." Yin Mietian's eyes lit up. The aura has increased greatly. It's extremely majestic. It's hard to pinpoint its location. However, we can determine its basic location. "Where is it?" The old man's eyes flickered. He pointed at the Buddha flame sea in front of him, trembling. The divine flames covered the sky as if they were going to devour everything in the world. "It's in the Sea of Flames." Yin Mietian frowned in disbelief. The fire attribute yuan qi around his body surged. His eyes were like the eyes of a fire god, emitting cold lightning. "The Buddha flame sea has been here for tens of thousands of years. It stretches for thousands of kilometers. It's even bigger than the Thunderfire Temple. How could it be here?" Yin Mietian stared at Su Chen's back and fell in a deep thought. The Buddha iron token's whereabouts were unknown. However, it had reacted in the Sea of Flames. Yin Mietian gradually raised his eyes. He took a deep breath and waved his giant hand. "You stay here and watch. Don't talk to Su Chen about what I just said. It seems that we have to find Su Yi. Otherwise, he will become Su Chen's karma for the rest of his life." The Cloud Immortal ancient sect was surrounded by clouds and mist. Endless smoke and dust had turned into all kinds of strange shapes. It was as if everything in this part of the world had a spirit. The grass, trees, mountains, and rocks all had spirituality. The white mist lingering in the mountains in the distance was like a light curtain hanging high in the sky. Thousands of miles of dust drifted in the white mist. Surrounded by celestial mountains, a simple and majestic building stood on the mountain peak, giving people a feeling that it was riding on the clouds. "What happened in the Ten Jade Tower?" "Yin Liang, come forward." Yin Zhongli sat on a high back chair, his eyes cold. Chapter 1944. Yin Liang was shocked. He cupped his hands and said to Yin Zhongli, "Su Yi is really something." The battle between him and Long Tsang was indeed earth-shattering. But judging from the last strike, it directly disturbed the violent changes in the spatial laws. This is definitely not something that could be produced by the two of them at the Origin Emperor and Origin Ancestor realm. It looks like Yin Zhongli shouted, his eyes glowing. He shouted angrily, "What does it look like? Tell me." Pain flashed in Yin Liang's eyes. Resentment and anger made him furious. He gritted his teeth and said, "Tell me." "It looks like the mysterious force when Yun Jing left. But I didn't see that green-robed girl in the Ten Jade building." Slap. Yun Zhongli slumped on the back of the chair like a ball that had lost its strength. His eyes were lifeless as he sighed softly. "Yun Jing, my Jing." Yun Zhongli's lips trembled, and he closed his eyes. Endless grief filled his heart, and a dim yellow luster appeared in his eyes. Everyone from the Yin family felt their hearts tremble as they silently lowered their heads and sighed softly. How did the two of them release such power? Yin Zhongli asked in a low voice. Yun Liang said softly, I avoided everyone and used the secret technique you taught me to observe the two of them from afar. After the heavenly wind jade wall was broken, the energy of heaven and earth began to change. He was directly sucked into it. Everyone, including me, was expelled. Yin Zhongli opened his eyes. He seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant and nodded. Keep a close eye on one. Nothing can happen to the Yin family. The rest of you, continue to look for the green robe girl. At this moment, a shout came from outside the door. You're hiding here and eavesdropping again. Feng Bo. Get lost. Boom. Yin Zhongli flicked his finger and pushed the door open. Little Black Robe was standing outside the door, scolding an old man with messy hair. The old man had messy hair and a dirty face. He looked crazy, but there was a fierce light in his eyes. I'm just here for a stroll. He. Little Black Robe raised the scar on his face and said, You're everywhere. Do you know what's going on inside? Little Black Robe. Yin Zhongli shouted. In a flash, Little Black Robe saw the group of experts lying on the ground and immediately knelt on the ground, trembling all over. My lord, Feng Bo is eavesdropping again. Waving his hand, Little Black Robe glared at Feng Bo. Feng Bo opened his mouth, revealing a row of teeth. His actions were no different from a lunatic's. You guys can leave as well. Everyone from the Yun clan nodded and then left. When they passed by Feng Bo, they all frowned and shook their heads as they left. Looking at the crowd leaving, Feng Bo shook his head and couldn't stop laughing. Then, a powerless voice came from the room. Feng Bo, come in. Slightly bending his hands, Feng Bo slowly walked into the room. A sigh appeared on Yun Zhongli's aged face. What do you hear? Feng Bo opened his mouth and laughed. However, the profound light in his eyes couldn't be concealed. He said with a silly voice, Green, clothed woman. Is it that woman? After speaking, he hugged his head and cried. He squatted on the ground as if he had thought of something terrible and didn't want to recall it. You still haven't forgotten? Yun Zhongli smiled bitterly. I can't forget. How can I forget? Feng Bo said with a heart-wrenching voice. A fierce light flashed in his eyes, and his dirty right hand kept knocking on his head. Even if you can't forget, you have to. Some things are better left forgotten. It has been almost 20 years, and we didn't get anything. Yin Zhongli's long robe fluttered. His hands were supporting himself on the table, and his nose was shaking. Feng Bo gritted his teeth and raised his head to look at Yin Zhongli. He said with a trembling voice, Jing, she's also... The atmosphere instantly turned heavy. The oppressive atmosphere was filled with sadness. Yin Zhongli let out a long sigh. His sagely figure instantly turned into a sad father's figure. These people, what are they trying to do? What are they trying to do? Haven't they harmed enough? Feng Bo roared hysterically. Yin Zhongli suddenly turned around and pointed at Feng Bo with his trembling index finger and said with resentment, Get out. I want some peace and quiet. Feng Bo walked out of the room, trembling. Before he left, Yin Zhongli said faintly, When are you going to stop being crazy? Feng Bo lowered his head like a disappointed general and said with a smile, I have been crazy since the day I was crippled. If I don't go crazy, I won't live. Instead of being awake and suffering, I'd rather be a lunatic in the world. Feng Bo stepped heavily on the doorstep, and his body swayed. He could still be considered vigorous as he disappeared from sight. The Nirvana Dragon Palace was dazzling. The imposing golden dragon coiled in the sky. The golden dragon sitting in the sky was like 9 dragons flying in the sky, looking down at the entire Tian barbarian continent. The lifelike scales were huge houses. The dragon's spine was extremely wide. Standing on the dragon's head, Draconis looked calm and cold. The Long family expert behind him said with fear, Young Palace Master's injuries might not be healed in a short time. How much longer? The middle-aged man in medical attire was nervous and flustered. His hands were trembling, and he looked a little embarrassed. His meridians and dantian are damaged. It's not a problem to recover. It's just that it won't be easy to recover to his previous state, unless... Unless what? Draconis's eyes were as sharp as lightning. Cold light shot out in all directions, illuminating the entire sky. Soul pressure suddenly burst out, and the Long family disciples behind him prostrated on the ground, sweating profusely. Enduring the pain, the doctor immediately prostrated himself on the ground and shouted, "Unless we can find the glazed sky stamen." What is that? It's recorded in the dragon ancestors' medicine scripture that the glazed sky stamen has the ability to absorb spiritual energy and revive. However, it grew in the Tian barbarian continent 10,000 years ago. In these 10,000 years, the Long family's medical department couldn't find one. Draconis took a deep breath. The Long family's Tian Feng Martial Pavilion was the oldest Tian barbarian force after the Tian Yao School. If even the Long family couldn't find it, it probably didn't exist in the world. Is there anything in the dragon ancestors' medicine scripture that can replace the glazed sky stamen? Draconis patiently asked. After pondering for a moment, the Long family's doctor, who was already sweating profusely, said with a trembling voice, "The dragon ancestors' medicine scripture is only a fragment now. The entire content is estimated to be only 5% of the complete book, so there's no way to verify it. Do you still want me to remember that time 20 years ago?" Draconis turned around and looked back. His gaze was incomparably cold, as if a blade had pierced through his heart. Plop! The Long family's medical department's elder immediately knelt on the ground with a panicked expression and kowtowed repeatedly. "Get lost!" A dragon-like roar resounded in the surroundings, causing everyone's heart and soul to tremble. They didn't dare to look up for a long time. Dragon ancestors' medicine scripture, golden sky, suppressing stone. Very good. Duanmu Qing Tian. Su Yi. I'm going to tear you into pieces. Chapter 1945. His voice shook the heavens, and waves surged between heaven and earth. A painful roar came from one of the rooms on the dragon's spine. "Su Yi, find him for me. I want to kill him. I want to kill him." Long Tsong's eyes bulged. The pain from his damaged meridians made him gasp for breath. The veins on his flushed face were obvious. He was supposed to be the pride of the Long family, the new dragon god of heaven and earth. But now all of this was because of Su Yi. His meridians were severely injured, and his Dantian Sea of Qi was on the verge of shattering. If it wasn't for the protection of the Golden Dragon's aura, he would have been a cold corpse by now. How could he accept such humiliation and pain? Recalling the horrifying scene that happened in the Ten Jade restaurant, Long Tsong was still terrified and trembling. At this moment, Draconis came to Long Tsong's side silently. Standing in front of the bed, Draconis's face was unusually calm and his cold eyes shot out. "Father, you have to save me. Save me." Long Tsong looked at Draconis in despair. "Shut up." Draconis roared angrily and the air pressure surged out. The supreme pressure was like a golden dragon rising to the sky, causing the entire roof to shake. "Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Didn't you say he was an ant and a bedbug? You really gave me a big surprise." Draconis smirked. Disappointment and anger surged to the tip of his brows as he glared at Long Tsong, who was lying weakly on the bed. Long Tsong grabbed the bed with all his might. He wanted to say something, but swallowed his words in the end. The Heavenly Wind Jade Annulus was left behind by the people from the Heavenly Wind Martial Pavilion. It was actually broken by 2 kids. This hasn't happened in 10,000 years. Tell me in detail what happened. Draconis sneered. Long Tsong suddenly stood up and pointed his finger in the air as he looked at Draconis. "Father, yes. I remember now." Doubt flashed across Long Tsong's eyes as he carefully recalled everything about Su Yi. Su Yi is actually not afraid of our Long family's golden dragon spirit. Furthermore, the chi on his body is very majestic, far stronger than the golden dragon. He also has the Emperor Sparrow's method. I am sure that it is definitely not the manifestation of the essence. His body is mysterious. I can't see through it. Draconis frowned as he listened to Long Tsong's detailed analysis of the battle between him and Su. He also has the aura of the golden dragon. Draconis narrowed his eyes, and a cold wave slowly shot out. Turning around, Draconis walked back and forth with his hands behind his back as he said coldly, "Don't worry, I'll definitely bring back Su Yi's head for you, and your injuries will definitely be healed." Father went out for a trip. The Long family hasn't seen that old dragon for a long time. Father, we don't even know if the old dragon god is still around. Can't we go and beg that mysterious person? Long Tsong said softly, and regretted it immediately after. Draconis' eyes were instantly filled with killing intent, but it dissipated quickly. He said to Long Tsong, "There are some things that you should consider before saying them. What right do you have to beg him?" Swallowing his saliva, Long Tsong nodded. His eyes shone brightly as though he had seen hope, and he reminded Long Tsong, "By the way, how are you going to deal with that Yunling thing, Father? This Yunling thing and Su Yi have a lot of conflicts. Perhaps he could be a breakthrough." Draconis stroked his chin. After that, Draconis told Long Tsong to rest well. Before he left, he told Long Tsong, "Although Su Yi hasn't been found yet, we can't stop searching for the golden sky suppressing stone. The Long family must also walk to the peak. I will continue to search for the rest of the golden dragon bloodline, and I will find out everything about Su Yi." Long Tsong stared at Su Yi's back view in a daze as he muttered, "Su Yi, the Myriad Sword Alliance. Heaven's punishment, Sword Mountain." There were countless protruding peaks that looked like sword hilts. Legend had it that this was the place where the ancestors of the Myriad Sword Alliance refined their swords for generations. It was the best place to cultivate sword intent. Duguyumal was bathing in the cold wind on top of the steep cliff. There was a strange flower blooming on the steep cliff. Duguyumal stared at it blankly. "The world is so wonderful and colorful. You're the one who asked me to open my eyes." Duguyumal bit her lips, and her blue eyes shone brightly. Her clear blue eyes gazed at the beautiful scenery, her eyes filled with sadness. "Sister Yumal, I have been looking for you, but you are here." A young man's voice was heard. When Duguyumal heard the voice, she frowned and walked to the side of the cliff awkwardly. "Don't go, Sister Yumal. Muyang, don't come over. I have let you down. I misspoke." Duguyumal looked solemn like a child who had done something wrong. She did not know what to do. Sitamuyang looked at Duguyumal's back view with a warm smile. He tilted his head and said, "I heard that you have finally opened your eyes." Duguyumal nodded, and her fan-like eyelashes fluttered. Duguyumal had never thought that the first time she opened her eyes was because of Su Yi. "He is very strong, right?" Sitamuyang smiled. Turning around, Duguyumal looked at Situ Muyang from afar. At this moment, Situ Muyang's aura was vigorous and his sword intent was condensed. He was only 16 or 17 years old, but his cultivation had actually soared to the 3rd level of the Origin Emperor realm after coming out of seclusion. He is indeed very strong. He is unbelievably strong. Duguyumal sighed softly. Situ Muyang was full of righteousness. He smiled as though he was not worried at all. "Of course, he is my junior martial uncle. I have been with him through thick and thin. He has always been the one who creates miracles." Sister Yumal. Sitamuyang was as cheerful as usual. His dark eyes were filled with determination. "I just came out of seclusion in the depths of Sword Mountain and received a letter from Shenjian Gate. Mother and grandfather told me about it too." Sitamuyang took firm steps and rushed to Duguyuma's side like a flash of lightning. "Don't worry, Sister Yumal. Junior martial uncle will be fine. What you need to worry about is whether you are strong enough to fight alongside him the next time he appears. As long as you are strong enough, you can go with him without hesitation. This is my conclusion." Recalling what happened in 9-Star Valley, the gap between him and Su Yi was getting bigger. Not only was he of no help, but he had also become a burden. This was the main purpose of his seclusion. Even during the Tianfeng ranking tournament, he had never wavered in his desire to cultivate. Muyang, you have improved tremendously. You're also very strong. Duguyumal widened her clear blue eyes and looked at Mu Yang's transformation in amazement. Shaking his head, Situ Muyang smiled bitterly and said, "It is far from enough. Junior Martial Uncle is now the strongest person in Tian Incontinent. I still have a long way to go. Therefore, I have to continue my seclusion. I will wait for Junior Martial Uncle's arrival." Chapter 1946. Situ Muyang's dark and bright eyes were filled with confidence as he sized up the steep mountain and said in a deep voice, "That moment will definitely be soul-stirring. You can do it, Muyang. I believe in you." Looking at Duguyumal, Situ Muyang hesitated for a moment. Her beautiful eyes were cold, and she finally said, "I also heard that Senior Dugu Xie." Nodding, Duguyumal's eyes flashed with sadness. She knew that Dugu Xie sacrificed his life to save her. I asked my mother, "Is what Senior Dugu Xie said true? Is it true that the aristocratic family slaughtered the entire continent just to find that Duanmu, Qing Tian?" Situ Muyang's eyes dimmed. Who is cleaner than the other in the aristocratic family? Duguyumal sneered and stopped talking. "If you are willing, let's go find Junior Martial Uncle after I come out from my seclusion. If the aristocratic family doesn't want to stay, then so be it. Chaos region may be chaotic, but there are rules there. We can go to Yuqian Palace too." With a smile, Duguyumal flipped her hair and said, "All right, Muyang, I would like to go to Innate Below Sea City and have a look. That's the place with the best sources of information. There should be news about Su Yi." "All right, Sister Yumal. If you can meet Junior Martial Uncle first, you must tell him that I am working hard for our next reunion." Above the sparkling and crystalline sponge, the moonlight was like a song. In the distance, there were a few faint white sails floating. A pale silver light flashed across the sky and floated above the sea. On the surface of the sea, there was a colorful halo. It was located in the Tianlan Sea region, between the barbarian demon forest and chaos region. Together with the Tsang Sea region, it was known as the Tianman Sea. Occupying the aurora, the Tianlan Sea at night was surging with waves, splashing up sparkling and translucent water droplets, leaping with radiance. From afar, it looked as if it was connected to the distant sky. It flickered with an inky blue luster that seemed like it was from the primordial times. The boundless space was boundless. Sword Qi filled the sky. Duguyumal's sword Qi flowed in her hand and cut through the void. The Tianlan Sea region seemed to have sensed something, and a huge whirlpool appeared, pushing the seawater to both sides. A wide, pearl-white road appeared in front of his eyes. Duguyumal paused for a while and then rushed in. The simple and majestic Sky Horizon Sea City was like a primordial beast guarding the world, roaring proudly under the clear moon. The bottom of the sea rippled and mysterious lights filled the air. The buildings were completely different from the land. With the help of the moonlight, the colorful lights on the bottom of the sea were magnificent. In one of the palaces in the majestic Tianlan Sea City. Why didn't you let me inquire about Su Yi?" Lan Xiaoyan angrily rebuked. Her beautiful eyes were cold, and a cold light rapidly shot out like a cold diamond. Standing in front of him was Heavenly Lord Yi. She was wearing a light purple robe that was indescribably graceful and luxurious. She slowly stretched out her hands, and a surge of air immediately swept out in the void. Bang! The pressure gushed out, and Lan Linglian blocked with her hands. She floated back several zhang, and only stopped after a long distance. "Have you calmed down?" The Lord of Heaven asked coldly. "I can't calm down. Su Yi is missing. If I can help Su Yi take care of the Bawang sect and find him immediately, it would be better to befriend him. It would be better for Tianlan Sea City to get his help." The Heavenly Lord raised his eyebrows and shouted in a serious tone. "If it was before the Tianfeng battle, it would be fine. But it's different now. Everything is different now." "How is it different?" At this moment, a deep voice came from behind the huge coral chair. A man that Su Yi had seen before walked out. Elder Wuxiu. Lamu bowed. You're back? Senior brother Wuxiu, the heavenly lord said in a deep voice. It was Elder Ing Wuxiu, whom Su Yi had met in the Nine Stars Valley. Ing Wuxiu stroked his long beard and said, What happened to Fairy? Why are you so angry? Master didn't save her. Su Yi is our ally. Lan Ronglien was fuming, her beautiful eyes filled with anger. The heavenly lord shook his head and stared at Lan Mulien. How dare you? Have you become so unruly after going out on a trip? Ing Wuxiu tried to smooth things over. Don't be angry, heavenly lord. Fairy is still young. She's just a teenager. You're still siding with her. She went on a trip, and you didn't report her whereabouts. You're also protective of her. Let's not talk about these useless things. What did you find out? Lan Mulian's purple robe trembled as she listened to Ing Wuxiu's analysis of the current situation. The Sacred Mountain is busy selecting the Holy Emperor. The Sacred Master probably wants to be the next Holy Emperor and can't stand it anymore. The Long family is already spread out across the 6 continents. They're not only investigating Duanmu Qingtian, but they're also looking for Su Yi. Also, Draconis has sent people to the Infinity Sect, Ing Wuxiu said with a frown. Infinity Sect? Han Wulong? Why would he go there? Yi was confused. I've been away for so many years. My guess is that the Long family is also looking for someone with the Golden Dragon bloodline. Ing Wuxiu guessed. They want the Heaven-Suppressing Stone and a complete Golden Dragon bloodline. How strong do they want to be? The Heavenly Lord was confused. The Heavenly Lord looked at the equally confused Lan Mulien and asked Ing Wuxiu seriously, Is there any news about Su Yi? Ing Wuxiu shook his head and sighed. Still no news. However, the Bawang sect's power has increased tremendously. He's attracted a lot of attention. I'm worried that the Long family will make a move before they find Su Yi. The other factions like the Sky Dragon sect and the Divine Tiger sect will also see him as a thorn in their side. Do you think we should help? Help? Su Yi's whereabouts are unknown. Let me ask you first. Where do you think he's gone? The Heavenly Lord walked to Lan Mulien and patted her shoulder. I'm worried that he's with Duanmu Qingtian, and he's not in the Tian barbarian continent. Ing Wuxiu said faintly. Then how do you think Tianlan Sea City can help? If Su Yi has the Heaven-Suppressing Stone, helping him means making an enemy out of the Long family and the 4 aristocratic families. Don't forget that we must get the Heaven-Suppressing Stone. Not helping him is already the best we can do. Lan Balian quickly raised her head and looked at Su Yi. The Heavenly Monarch's beautiful eyes flashed with a cold gaze as she said, Lianer, after Heavenly Wind, there are many things that are beyond one's control. When necessary, it is wise to play it safe. Don't ruin Sea City's 10,000 years of foundation. Lan Mulian's breathing was rapid. Her eyes were filled with anxiety as she pursed her lips tightly. She didn't know what to say. Heavenly Lord, Fairy. Jing Baihua's unique voice came from outside the door. Lan Mulien came back to her senses and reprimanded them. What is it? Lady Dugi Yuma of the Myriad Sword Alliance is outside the door. Chapter 1947. Jing Baihua also paused for a moment. She was slightly stunned, and then she reported, Let's go and have a look, Ing Wuxiu said with a smile. Instantly, Lan Ronglien's clear eyes flickered as she glanced deeply at the two of them, and then she walked out slowly. What magic does Su Yi have? Both Ronglien and Lady Dugu have reunited because of Su Yi. Yi was shocked. Haha, Lord of Heaven, you have seen that kid yourself. We haven't seen each other for such a long time. This kid has really turned the Tianan continent upside down. He even waded through the deepest muddy water. Ing Wuxiu's eyes were trembling with admiration. You should be careful outside. The Long family is not that easy to deal with. The Lord of Heaven reminded him. I know. Ing Wuxiu's eyes instantly became serious. When he mentioned the Long family, he snorted coldly. In the main hall of the Nine Stars Valley. Where is Chunyao? Come out and welcome us. A group of experts in gray robes rushed into the Nine Stars Valley. The vital chi in the mountains, which were arranged in picturesque disorder, was flowing and a strong wind was blowing. Who was making a ruckus in the Nine Stars Valley? An elder of the Nine Stars Valley shouted. Swish! Swish! In an instant, the cultured and elegant Chen Yao rushed to the entrance of the valley with a group of people. He was shocked when he saw the group of experts in front of him. Chen Yao's eyes were trembling. He knew that the group of people in front of him were definitely powerful and stronger than him. Who are you? Countless thoughts flashed through Chen Yao's mind. He was so nervous that all the pores on his body opened up. Sky Dragon Sect, Divine Tiger Sect, Celestial Sword Sect, Gemini Sect. Immediately, a cold light flashed in the eyes of the experts of the Sky Dragon Sect. They spoke to an elder behind them. This is Lord Long Kuei from the Brahma Dragon Palace. Salute him. Bam! Chen Yao was instantly shocked. He stood there with his eyes wide open and his mouth wide open. He did not know what to say. The aura was powerful and powerful. The peerless momentum caused the group of experts behind him, including some of the experts from the Chaos Realm, to lie flat on the ground, not daring to move. It was a kind of absolute pressure that came from above. It was the absolute suppression of a superior to a subordinate. Everyone knew that these people were all the top forces of their respective continents. Normally, they were existences that they yearned for but couldn't reach. Normally, these forces wouldn't even pay attention to a force like the Nine-Star Valley, which was only ranked second or third in the Chaos region. You are Chen Yao? It took a long time for Chen Yao to recover from his absent-mindedness. Yes. After a long while, Chen Yao, who had always been calm, finally recovered from his shock and replied in a panic. Let's talk inside. Lead the way. A domineering aura burst out from the Sky Dragon sect members, and Chen Yao hurriedly led everyone back to the place where they were discussing. If Su Yi had been there, he would have definitely recognized that not only were there people from the Blood Sun sect, but there was also someone who had been fleeing for a long time. This is the great elder of the Blood Sun sect, Bai Zun. This is sect leader Hong Qianlong of the Heavenly Dipper sect. Bai Zun and Hong Qianlong bowed to the experts at the same time in fear and trepidation for fear of offending them. The leader of the Sky Dragon sect didn't even look at the people from the Blood Sun sect and the Heavenly Dipper sect and walked straight to the seat of honor. Chen Yao didn't dare to be careless and respectfully led Long Kuei to sit down. Elder Long, please take a seat. Bai Zun and Hong Qianlong were also overlords of their own territories. They sized up the people in front of them. Although their faces were covered, their auras were vigorous. They must be absolute experts. Even though they were nervous, they did not dare to show their dissatisfaction. Even if they were unhappy, they could only suppress it for now. Chen Yao looked at them respectfully. After saying that with a smile, he came to the two and whispered in their ears for a while. Everyone in the meeting hall prostrated themselves on the ground, their legs trembling. Bai Zun even changed his expression. Not only the Immortal of the Dragon Palace. Bai Zun, excuse me for not coming out to meet you. Long Kuei only revealed a pair of old wrinkled eyes and an impatient look, as if it was beneath his dignity to sit in the same room with ants. Then he waved his hand and said in a deep voice, Wang Jinghui, finish quickly. I have something important to do. Sit down. The leader of the Sky Dragon sect, Wang Jinghui, said in a cold voice. His eyes were shining. The Blood Sun sect participated in the Tianfeng ranking tournament. The Nine-Star Valley is also one of the top 3 forces in the Chaos region. Why didn't you go? The people of the Sky Dragon sect knew that. Chen Yao's expression changed. Ever since Su Yi destroyed the Thunder Sealing Valley, the Nine-Star Valley suffered a great loss, and several of their elders had died. Compared to the Blood Sun sect, the Nine-Star Valley was in a higher position, because Chen Yao's meticulous hair fluttered in the wind, and he was sweating profusely. He was so nervous that he couldn't breathe. Let me help you. Because of Su Yi, right? Everyone's eyes were fixed on the seat of honor, and a thought flashed through their minds. Su Yi has the Devil Sword, and is closely related to the evil man Duanmu Qingtian. He destroyed the Tianfeng ranking tournament's 100 years of foundation, severely injured the young palace master of the Nirvana Dragon Palace, and made enemies with the 5 aristocratic families. He even made a blood feud with the Sky Dragon sect, Divine Tiger sect, and the Holy Mountain, and escaped. Elder Long Kuei said slowly, listing out every crime. Long Kuei's eyes were cold as he stared at Baizun, Chun Yao, and Hong Qianlong with a proud expression. With every sentence he said, the experts of the Chaos region trembled. Then, Wang Jinghui continued. The Bawang sect is developing very fast now. It seems like we need to contain them. Chun Yao and Baizun looked at each other, and their shock quickly turned into ecstasy. Su Yi was their common enemy. They had gathered together this time because of Su Yi's fame and the rapid rise of the Bawang sect. They were worried that they would be implicated, so they wanted to come up with a solution. Now that they had the support of such a top force, it was simply a blessing from the heavens. That's right, Su Yi has shown off his ability. He is doomed to destruction for his unjust deeds. Baizun said viciously. Su Yi destroyed the 1,000 years of foundation of the 9 Stars Valley. He can't redeem himself, even if he dies 100 times. When he thought about how he was almost removed from his position as the sect master of the 9 Stars Valley because of this matter, he was filled with hatred. Needless to say, Hong Qianlong was like a rat on the street after the Big Dipper realm made him a mere figurehead. His status in the Chaos region was extremely low, and he, a half-step sky origin grandmaster, was living like this. All of this was because of Su Yi. Since that's the case, I believe that you can work together to destroy the Bawang sect. As for Su Yi, leave him to us. Walala. Instantly, as if they had found a group, all the experts of the Chaos region cried bitterly and nodded their heads. They pounded their chests and promised that they would destroy Su Yi's forces in the cradle. When they really arrived at the Bawang sect, they might regret the decision they had made today. You stay here and take care of things. The Dragon God is in the Chaos region. I have to go and find him. Long Kuei frowned and whispered to Wang Jinghui. Chapter 1948. Wang Jinghui almost fell off his chair. His face was full of shock as his lips trembled. Why did the Dragon God come to the Chaos realm? As soon as he spoke, Wang Jinghui's eyes flashed. Could it be that the Dragon God came for Su Yi's Bawang sect? Impossible. The Dragon God is high and mighty. Even if Su Yi's whereabouts were unknown, the Dragon God would not condescend to make a deal with a young man. Otherwise, the Heavenly Dragon sect and Divine Tiger sect would not have done this for him. While thinking, Long Kuei immediately stood up. His eyebrows were like mountains as dragon tattoos covered his body. His aura was long and profound as he swept his gaze across the crowd. With a light snort, he disappeared. Farewell, Lord Long Kuei. Baizun and Chun Yao's eyes were filled with endless worship and reverence as they hurriedly spoke in the direction he disappeared. All right, let's make a plan for the next step. Wang Jinghui's eyes were cold as he spoke with undisguised disdain and ridicule. Yes. Deacon Wang is right. Chun Yao's attitude had completely changed. His flattery and solicitous appearance was nauseating. On the contrary, in the Bawang sect, the army's plan was proceeding in an orderly manner. After the selection of direct disciples and inner disciples, nearly 8,000 core members were finally selected from the 70 to 80,000 disciples. The Overlord army was divided into the Overlord Martial sect and the Overlord Soul sect. The Heavenly Demon army was led by the 3 great demons, Shuizhong, Zhuorou, and Yingwu. The Green Emperor had also communicated with Elder Gue, Merciless West, and Yang Ming from the Heavenly Palace. The Heavenly Palace sent people to build a secret transmission station. All of this was completed in a few days. The transmission energy is huge. Are there enough crystals? Ming stood in front of the transmission station with a heavy expression. For this transmission plan, the Soul sect was led by Tang Wang. The Martial sect was led by the 3 great demons, and Lei Yunhe was still guarding the Bawang sect to adjust the phantom world. The Green Emperor pointed at the constantly surging energy in the transmission station and said with a smirk, before the sect master went in, "He gave me half of the 6-star crystal boxes. There are more than 50 of them. That's enough." "I didn't even know," Yiming exclaimed in shock. Back in the Demon Slayer sect, he and the Green Emperor were practically inseparable, and yet he didn't even know about it. Green Emperor's narrow eyes flashed with a hint of shock as he said in a low voice, "Not only that, the plan for the army was also thought of by Master a long time ago. I just took the opportunity to reveal it. Master actually thought so far ahead." Yiming's seductive face was filled with shock. This kind of youth wasn't even 20 years old. What kind of experience did he have to be so meticulous? Master is so talented that he doesn't fear the Long family at all. Therefore, we will definitely win this battle. Yiming unconsciously grasped the Green Emperor's arm and said with a slight blush, with a hint of worry in her fiery and wild eyes, "What are you going to do? I don't want anything to happen to you." The Green Emperor smiled and patted Yiming's hand. "It's all fate. Everything is given to me by Master. Even if it's heaven or hell, I'll still go. I'll accompany you, and Yangming will be blessed by the heavens." After a long pause, the dangerous aura in the air gradually approached. The clouds in the sky began to drift, and the two from the demon clan could smell the danger. "All right, stop being so lovey-dovey." Tang Wang's kind face revealed a trace of a teasing smile as he walked over from behind with a large group of people following behind him. "Elder Tang, please excuse us. This time, the Soul Sect will have to trouble Elder Tang." Green Emperor smiled and resumed his serious appearance. "I'm also a member of the Bawang sect. I should live and die with the Bawang sect." A trace of panic flashed through his dim eyes. He and the 3 demons had just come out of seclusion and encountered such an earth-shattering event. Everyone knew that this was a critical moment for the survival of the Bawang sect. "I'll return immediately after handing over the Soul Sect to the Heavenly Palace. If the 9 Stars Valley dares to stir up trouble at this time, I'll make sure Chun Yao returns lying down." His killing intent was awe-inspiring as his aura exploded. An even more vigorous starry aura caused the 3 demons behind him to be filled with heroic spirit. "Green Emperor, if the Bawang sect dares to stir up trouble and you don't come and talk to us, I'll skin you alive." Shuizhong's eyes flashed with cold, killing intent. "That's right. Hurry and inform us when Master returns. The 3 of us owe Master too much. We must repay him." The eyes of the Green Emperor shone with excitement. He nodded his head and looked at Shuizhong and the others. He then glanced at his chest. "Good brothers," everyone in the heavenly demon army shouted at the same time. This time, the celestial demon army was made up of the barbaric demon beasts under the various demonic emperors, as well as the newly added barbaric demon beasts. In a split second, the mountains shook and blood gushed out. Regardless of whether they had passed the transformation tribulation or were still in their original form, the barbaric beasts covered the mountains and rivers. Countless pairs of fiery eyes emitted an invincible aura. Roar! Roar! The beasts' roars shook the heavens and the mountains and rivers. In the forest filled with demonic aura, even the martial ancestor and soul ancestor's eyes were bloodshot. There was nowhere to hide their violent aura. "Master, do you see it? This is a brand new Bawang sect." Green Emperor nodded repeatedly, his throat trembling with excitement. Yiming's face was flushed with excitement. Then, Tang Wang and the 3 demons led the Bawang sect's martial artists, soul masters, and heavenly demon beasts through the spatial passage and successfully arrived at the heavenly palace and demon-subduing sect. When Gyue and Merciless West saw such a uniform army, their hearts trembled. In an instant, the great demon mountain range of the demon-subduing sect was filled with new blood. Chi Fei Hong and the Scarlet Cosmic Leopard were shocked and fearful, but at the same time, they also had a deeper impression of Sui. Good boy. Jun Hao Hien and Gyue had already received the news, But when they were near the teleportation station to receive them, they didn't expect this. The Bawang sect had gathered so many soul masters. Even if their overall strength couldn't compare to the Heavenly Palace, it was still a number that couldn't be ignored in any other sect. Have all the soul masters in the world gone to join Su Yi? Jun Haoyan's mouth was wide open. The number of people in front of him was exaggerated to the extreme. The Heavenly Palace only had a few thousand soul masters, but there were close to 1,000 of them this time. Interesting. This kid has his reasons for being so fearless. The demon-subduing sect is probably overcrowded. Jun Haoyan was shocked. He nodded and quickly ordered people, all Bawang sect disciples, please follow me. At this time, Gyue had already passed through the crowd, turning into a streak of light and flying away. Jun Haoyan shouted behind him, Palace Lord Gyue, where are you going? Gyue didn't reply. He was also heading towards the epicenter peak. Other than reporting the arrival of the Bawang sect, there was another important matter. Chapter 1949. Central Quake Rear Peak, Heaven Commanding Divine Palace. A tall figure rushed into the main hall, pulling open the curtains like a gust of wind. Palace Master Duanmu. An old voice came out from the body, trembling endlessly, as though he was in a hurry. The old man waited for a few breaths of time, but he still did not sense any traces of anyone in the main hall. His eyes fluctuated and dimmed slightly. Chila. Blue ice crystals broke through the air and quickly dissolved the pressure in the main hall. A heart-piercing chill swept through like an ancient storm. Immediately, the old man's eyes shone brightly, and his body unconsciously retreated. Old Master Su, what's the matter? His voice was gentle, but the faint sorrow still could not escape Su Yuntian's tiger eyes. His teeth slightly clenched. Su Yuntian's hale and hearty eyes blazed as he spoke softly. I heard from the servants in Heaven Commanding Palace that Su Yi, did he not return? After pausing for a moment, Duanmu Xiaoman's aura began to fluctuate, and a trace of panic flashed across her frosty face, but it quickly disappeared. Su Yi, he is in a safe place. He'll be back soon. Subconsciously, Su Yuntian could not hide the sorrow in his heart, and the corner of his mouth twitched. He walked forward and said emotionally, How long will it take? What exactly happened to her? Please tell me, Palace Master Duanmu. So, another gust of cold wind blew past, and the blue light in front of her trembled. Duanmu Xiaoman flashed to Su Yuntian's side, her red lips tightly pursed, and her tone was firm. Very soon, if I say he will return, he will return. Old Master, don't you trust me? The voice that was close to a shout made Su Yuntian's heart stunned. In the dim but turbid eyes, Duanmu Xiaoman's face was firm, and for a moment, Su Yuntian swallowed all his worries back into his stomach. He was clear that Duanmu Xiaoman was also heartbroken, and perhaps even more heartbroken than his own grandfather. Alas! Letting out a long sigh, Su Yuntian's hands drooped down powerlessly as he muttered, "Er lost his parents when he was young and was brought up by me. His personality is a little mischievous, but his heart is always kind. Er's suffering is hard for others to imagine. As his grandfather, I try my best to tolerate him. Has grown up and his abilities have grown, so naturally I am happy. But as an elder, how can I not be worried when my grandson's whereabouts are unknown? Old Master, I care about Su Yi as much as you do. I promise that when he comes back, he will come to see you immediately." Su Yuntian gratefully nodded his head, tears welling up in his eyes, unable to fade away for a long time. "Get married when you come back. He is not young anymore." Su Yuntian's heart was filled with boundless joy as he looked at his granddaughter-in-law. Duanmu Xiaoman paused for a moment, feeling a little awkward, and changed the topic. "Old man, you just said that Su Yi didn't have parents since he was young? Where are his parents?" Duanmu Xiaoman asked softly. His parents. When this topic was brought up, Su Yuntian's eyes were filled with endless sorrow, and he almost couldn't help but speak of the past with a choked voice. Su Yi's father, Su Jingyuan, had made a name for himself at a young age in Barbarian City. He was an invincible existence in the younger generation, and he had already reached the 9th level of the Origin Void stage at the age of 16. At that time, it was widely spread in Barbarian City that Su Jingyuan would become a personal disciple of any first-rate power. No matter how unknown and mediocre he was, after more than 10 years, he would still be able to become a sect elder. Since then, everyone believed that the Su clan would become even more powerful and prosperous. Compared to the Liu clan that had the support of the Saint Mountain, the Su clan would become the next city governor. Unexpectedly, Su Jingyuan didn't choose any sect and instead chose to travel around without joining any sect, choosing the extremely arduous path of an independent cultivator. Cultivating alone requires great courage. Duanmu Xiaoman raised her chin as a trace of depression flashed in her eyes. Su Yuntian chuckled and said in a low voice, "Jingyuan, since my son has this ambition, I will naturally support it." His first stop was the same as Er's first stop. They both chose the barbaric demon forest. Duanmu Xiaoman had also gone to the barbaric demon forest when she wanted to investigate the whereabouts of Duanmu Qingtian. That place was a paradise for barbaric demons and a battlefield for humans. Choosing this place undoubtedly required great tenacity and perseverance. 3 years passed by like riding a horse. When Su Jingyuan returned, he was already at the 4th level of the Origin Monarch realm, and it caused a commotion in Barbarian City. So fast, a mere independent cultivator broke through the shackles of the Origin Monarch realm so easily with his own ability? Duanmu Xiaoman's brows gradually furrowed. Su Yuntan nodded proudly, and there was undisguised pride between his brows as he said in a low voice, "Not only that, Jingyuan also brought Su Yi's mother back. That was the first time I saw my daughter-in-law, Wen Fu, and also the last time I saw her." "The last time you saw her?" Duanmu Xiaoman's heart flashed with doubt. "That's right. One night, Jingyuan brought Fu back and left after staying for a short while. Since then, I have never seen them again." The sorrow of losing his son spread like a tide. Duanmu Xiaoman heard it, but her heart was filled with doubts. Why did Su Jingyuan leave in the middle of the night after bringing Wen Fu back? Could it be that he was being chased? Or was it because of some unknown secret? "Old master, there's one thing I hope you can tell me truthfully." Duanmu Xiaoman's expression was solemn. Pulling himself out from the painful memories, Su Yuntian's withered hands rubbed his red eyes, took a deep breath, and said in a deep voice, "Palace Master Duanmu, please speak. You are the granddaughter-in-law that I have decided on. I will tell you everything I know." Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flashed with a trace of shyness, and the corner of her mouth moved slightly as she said, "What kind of secret treasure does Barbarian City have?" Su Yuntian's eyes flashed, and he was stunned for a moment. After a moment of silence, he said, "You also asked me about this before. Sigh, maybe I'm just ignorant. Actually, Barbarian City was a small city in a remote corner. It was adjacent to Barbarian Demon Forest, but there were no Barbarian Demon beasts attacking it. This point alone was worth investigating." Su Yuntian recalled, "Although Barbarian City is small, it has a long history. According to the records of our ancestors, there were only a few families in the earliest Barbarian City. They were the ancestors of He, Su, Emo, Song, and Lu. Gradually, the 5 great families developed and became the protectors of Barbarian City for thousands of years. As to why they settled down in Barbarian City, there are many different theories." Su Yuntian told Duanmu Xiaoman that in the middle of Barbarian City, there was a temple. Inside, there were sacrifices for the ancestors of the 5 great families who had made outstanding contributions to Barbarian City. And in the middle of the temple, there was the earliest well in Barbarian City. That was the most important source of water for Barbarian City. Because of this source of water, Barbarian City began to prosper. Gradually, the population grew, and the fire continued to burn. If you want to talk about something special, the spiritual qi around the temple is indeed abundant. This could be the reason why the ancestors chose this place. Other than that, there is nothing special about Barbarian City. If there was something special, how could I not know? Chapter 1950. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flickered as she asked gently, "Then what was the matter with the barbarian demon's attack 20 years ago? He also told you about this matter? I don't know where the barbarian demons heard about the secret treasure in Barbarian City and formed the Undying Sect to attack Barbarian City." Su Yuntian's eyes were still filled with shock as he spoke to Duanmu Xiaoman. "That time, I don't know why, but I received an extremely strong power to save Barbarian City. After that, I can't remember what happened." "There's such a thing?" Duanmu Xiaoman focused as she recalled everything that happened in Barbarian City. Barbarian City was indeed extraordinary. According to Old Man Su, the barbarian demons in Barbarian City had been living in harmony for thousands of years. Why would they attack because of a groundless treasure? The more she thought about it, the more she felt that something was amiss. The more she thought about it, the more confused she felt. Duanmu Xiaoman spoke to Su Yuntian. "Old man, you can stay here with peace of mind." At this moment, Gyue also came in and told the two of them about the overlord martial sect entering Yuqian Palace. He established the sect himself? Su Yuntian was overjoyed as he nodded his head. Gyue was shocked as he spoke to Duanmu Xiaoman and Su Yuntian. "Yes. Old man, Su is really amazing. He established a sect of such scale at such a young age. His future is limitless." After that, Gyue brought Su Yuntian back to their residence, leaving Duanmu Xiaoman alone to ponder. Why would Qingtian be confined in Barbarian Demon Forest? Is it related to the treasure? Barbarian demons attack. Countless thoughts flashed through Duanmu Xiaoman's mind as she vaguely grasped the whole story. However, she still felt that something was missing. Barbarian City must have a huge secret. When Sui returns, I must go and take a look. Duanmu Xiaoman thought to herself. 3 black region, space-time mezzanine. 3 golden suns hung high in the sky as endless heat waves violently surged over. The air ripples in the air became dry and cracked due to the extreme heat. All the living beings and plants here were extremely ferocious. Just like a pile of dry straw, a small spark was enough to ignite it into a raging fire. How can I get out of here? Su Yi's starry sky soul was heavily inserted into the ground. He angrily sat in a slightly shaded area, fine beads of sweat continuously climbing up his forehead. In this scorching space, he felt demon forest's heart zest. His chi, Duan Palace's cheeses, as he was bathed in the warm moons. "We'll think about going out after we finish chatting." Isui cursed loudly. His heart was filled with anxiety. The fire attribute Yuan Qi that he cultivated became even more violent, like tongues of fire coiling around his body. Sui knew that if he continued to waste time with the Duanmu Qingtian, he would very likely die of old age here. The Duanmu Qingtian was his only hope. He retracted his Yuan Qi and took a deep breath. He raised his eyes slightly and revealed an extremely warm expression as he spoke through gritted teeth. "Senior, what do you want to know?" Let's chat." Young people are so impatient. What can they accomplish?" Duanmu Qingtian squinted. His white hair and handsome face formed a sharp contrast. He jumped up and pointed at Duanmu Qingtian. "I don't have time to chat with you. Tell me how to get back. I still have a lot of things to do. Many people are waiting for me." His heart was already boiling with anxiety. What would happen after the Tianfeng ranking tournament? Would the Duanmu Xiaoman launch an attack on the Long family? Would the Sacred Mountain and the Divine Tiger sect start to have thoughts about the Bawang sect because of his disappearance? He couldn't afford to waste time with these questions. Duanmu Qingtian, on the other hand, was acting as if nothing had happened. He wasn't anxious at all and was leisurely. "I've already said that you have to understand clearly. I've already told you before. It's already a miracle that you, a 9th-level Origin Emperor, could come out. It won't be easy for you to go back. You didn't even tell me how you came here. How do you want me to teach you how to be so impatient?" Duanmu Qingtian raised his eyebrows slightly, still calm and composed. He sighed and muttered, "That's right. You've been here for 100 years, and you're not in a hurry to go back. I've already been here for more than 10 days. I don't even know what has become of the sky barbarian continent. Kid, what are you talking about? Say it again. Duanmu Qingtian's eyes suddenly narrowed. Obviously, he was really angry and his aura became fierce for no reason. Duanmu Qingtian's eyes immediately shot out a sword-like gaze as he stared at Su Yi. You think I don't want to go back? Kid, if you dare to talk nonsense again, be careful that I won't show you any mercy. Whoosh! A round pearl flew to Duanmu Qingtian's side across the air and grabbed at the air. Duanmu Qingtian immediately shut his mouth. Su Yi, who was a little overwhelmed by Duanmu Qingtian's rage, organized his words properly and said in a deep voice, I probably used this to teleport here. At that time, I was in the 10 Jade building and broke the Heavenly Wind Jade Annulus. Then, the Domain Pearl automatically came out and brought me here. How did you get the Domain Pearl? Duanmu Qingtian suddenly asked as if he didn't hear Su Yi's words. Su Yi was slightly stunned. He curled his lips and said, I got it in the demonic mirage of the demon subduing sect. Demon subduing sect? Duanmu Qingtian gently raised his head and looked at the sky. He said in a daze, as expected, that white flood dragon god. The white flood dragon god's remnant soul has been waiting for you in the Jutian palace for 100 years. In the end, she passed on her talent to me, hoping that I would be able to find you. Now, I've helped her fulfill her wish. Su Yi's eyes flashed as a warm current flashed through his heart. Duanmu Qingtian suddenly fell silent. After a while, he lowered his head and said with a wry smile, the Heavenly Wind Jade Annulus was actually broken by a brat like you. How unbelievable. Su Yi shrugged. The scene of the Heavenly Wind Jade Annulus breaking that day surfaced in his mind. Duanmu Qingtian's voice gradually sounded. The universe is chaotic. The Heavenly Barbarian Domain is only a tiny star among the thousands of star regions. It is also the most remote and inconspicuous low-grade star region. Normally, no one would come to such a star region. As time passed, the space-time mezzanine became sealed. No one from our domain has entered the Heavenly Barbarian Domain's space-time mezzanine for tens of thousands of years. Duanmu Qingtian looked at Su Yi and continued, Do you still remember when we met in the canyon? Su Yi nodded. At that time, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't enter the place where Duanmu Qingtian was. He even made a bet that he would come back after reaching the Origin Ancestor Realm to become his disciple. That is the entrance to the Heavenly Barbarian Domain's space-time mezzanine. I could feel that the entrance to the space-time mezzanine was man-made. Actually, there is another entrance to the mezzanine. It is inside the demonic mirage of the demon subduing sect, Su Yi said to Duanmu Qingtian without blinking. Chapter 1951. Duanmu Qingtian glanced at Su Yi, his eyes filled with shock. There's another one? I've heard of the demonic fantasy cave when I was traveling the Sky Barbarian continent, but I never had the chance to go in. It turns out that there's also a space-time tunnel inside. At this time, 3 golden suns were taking turns across the sky. The scorching sunlight shone directly on the ground. It was noon and the light was scorching. Suddenly, the scene in front of Su Yi started to blur. Dizziness and hallucinations collided with his nerves and his mind. Scorching heat waves were rolling. Su Yi cried out in his heart. He immediately condensed his hand seals and quickly activated the art of controlling heaven. He concealed his spirit and qi, calmed his heart and qi, and gradually channeled the vitality in the air into his dantian. The burning vitality burned the divine, spiritual meridians. While Su Yi was enduring the slight pain, the heavenly origin demon's soul also shone brightly. The pleasure brought by the pain made Su Yi feel that his body was experiencing indescribable benefits. Duanmu Qingtian saw this and said softly with a trace of praise in his eyes, Calm your heart and concentrate. That's right. Cultivation is everywhere. No matter what situation you encounter, it's equally important to train your heart. The serious teaching voice rang in Su Yi's ears. After a while, Su Yi gradually adapted to the extreme temperature. Slowly opening his eyes, a deep light surged in his quiet eyes. Su Yi raised the corner of his mouth and was a little surprised at his own state. He continued the topic just now. Senior, so the Demon Man Forest is the entrance to the space-time mezzanine of the Sky Barbarian continent? Duanmu Qingtian nodded and played with the domain bead in his hand. He pointed it at the 3 golden suns. The sunlight shone through the bead. It was crystal clear and full of spirit. The Demon Man Forest is actually such an important place in the Sky Barbarian continent. I really didn't expect it. He said softly. Duanmu Qingtian laughed and said, when I discovered it, I also didn't expect that the Demon Man Forest, which almost no one stepped into, would be so important. Even the Barbarian City hides a huge secret. Listen to me and help me analyze it. I haven't figured out the secret of the Barbarian City. The secret of the Barbarian City? A secret that has been passed down in Barbarian City for many years? So he was surprised. He had a lot of questions that he wanted to ask Duanmu Qingtian, but he didn't know where to start. Duanmu Qingtian tossed the domain bead to Su Yi and pouted. Isn't that the one in your hand? Immediately, Su Yi's mouth fell to the ground. Suddenly, he and Duanmu Qingtian said in unison, the well of the temple. With a faint smile, Duanmu Qingtian wrinkled his nose and praised Su Yi's intelligence. That's right. It's a long story, so you have to listen to me slowly. Su Yi suddenly felt a little embarrassed. His previous impatience had almost angered this person who knew the truth the best. He felt guilty in his heart and said embarrassedly, Senior, you're right. I'll listen to you. Take your time. Duanmu Qingtian walked toward the fire essence vine room. Su Yi quickly followed behind and sat down in the room. The drop in temperature made Su Yi exclaim in his heart. Duanmu Qingtian poured a cup of fire essence vine juice, smacked his lips, and exclaimed in satisfaction. This made Su even more shocked. No wonder he was the top person in the Tianyin continent. To be able to drink the fire essence vine like tea, he was simply a god. What he said next basically confirmed Su Yi's thoughts. The Long family had joined forces with the other 5 big families to destroy the Tianfeng Martial School. The 5 big families had their own abilities and kept each other in check. Among them, the Yun and Long families were the strongest, while the other 3 families were equal. The Tianyao School was eliminated by the Long family, the Sky Dragon sect, the Sacred Mountain, and other forces under the pretext of the beginning of demons. Since then, the Tianyin continent was officially settled. The aristocratic families, top forces, and first-rate forces were divided into 3 levels. This 3-level structure lasted for hundreds of years in the Tianyin continent. It basically created the martial arts characteristic of the strong being strong and the weak being weak. Among them, the Sky Dragon sect and the Sacred Mountain had the best development. Both of them had always wanted to be close to the aristocratic families. The Sacred Emperor of the Sacred Mountain was even more outstanding and talented. He became a big problem for the 5 big families. However, this was all in the future. Yuqian Palace had always been aloof from worldly affairs and was known as the Tianyin continent. Because of their overall talent in alchemy and weapon refining that was 100 times better than others, they had managed to survive for thousands of years without any damage. They even secretly developed and became an existence that the Tianyin continent dared not ignore. At this time, the birth of a pair of siblings in Yuqian Palace attracted the attention of the world again. The names of Mighty Crane and Goddess Yuqian spread throughout the 6 continents and quickly attracted the attention of the aristocratic families. Duanmu Qingtian faintly recalled the glory of that time. His eyes were still shining with incomparable pride and pride. Before taking over the banner of Yuqian Palace, Duanmu Qingtian mentioned that he wanted to go out and travel for a while. Being stubborn by nature, Duanmu Qingtian went on a tour and saw many things that he didn't know about. He also met many people that he would never meet in his lifetime. At this time, Duanmu Qingtian was traveling in the sea and accidentally discovered the ruins of the Sky Wind Martial Pavilion. In the ruins, he found the Sky Wind Sword intent and domain pearl left behind by the Sky Wind Martial Pavilion. When he learned that the Sky Wind Martial Pavilion was jointly destroyed by the 5 aristocratic families that he had nurtured, a youthful spirit surged in his heart. Immediately, he ran to the Nirvana Dragon Palace to investigate. Who knew that the Nirvana Dragon Palace was not a place that ordinary people could go? Those old ancestors of a long family were simply heaven-defying to a terrifying realm. At that time, I was still at the half-step Yuan Tian stage. Those old ancestors were all at the peak of the 9th layer Yuan domain stage, and were even at the half-step Yuan Tian stage. How could I defeat them? Sui could not help but frown as he listened. Sui had also experienced the power of the half-step Yuan Tian stage from the Blood Chi Demon Dragon in the Broken Sword Sea. If he did not join forces with Duanmu Xiaoman, he would not be able to sit here and listen to Duanmu Qingtian reminisce about the past. However, the Long family also lost a lot. I stole their ancestral dragon medicine scripture. Not only does it contain the knowledge of the Sky Barbarian Continent's medicine Tao, it also contains the heavenly Tao that is difficult to pry into in martial arts. It can be said to be the crystallization of the entire Sky Barbarian Continent's wisdom. The Long family's ancestors were able to write such a heavenly Tao scripture. It can be said that they did not disgrace the Golden Dragon's inheritance. Duanmu Qingtian's endless praise aroused Su Yi's curiosity. He asked in a low voice, "Then where is this medicine scripture now?" "I gave it to someone else," Duanmu Qingtian said indifferently. "What? That's his life's work." Countless black lines appeared on Su Yi's forehead. A feeling of regret flashed across his face. "Of course I have my reasons. Kid, listen to me." After that, the theft of the medicine scripture completely angered the Long family, and Duanmu Qingtian's strength also aroused the Long family's suspicion. A disciple of the Jintian Palace who lived in seclusion all year round was actually able to reach the half-step Yuan Tian stage. It was easy for people to associate it with the Golden Heaven Suppressing Stone. Chapter 1952. They would never have thought that the Golden Heavenly Stone was not in my hands. If I had the Golden Heavenly Stone, the Long family would have been gone a long time ago, and I would have let them cause so much trouble. Later on, Duanmu Qingtian was hunted down by the Long family. At first, it was only the Long family. Later on, it evolved into the pursuit of all 5 aristocratic families. In the end, anyone who had the slightest relationship with the aristocratic families began to hunt him down. Su Yi had heard about this from Saruga. For decades, no one was able to find the Duanmu Qingtian, not even a trace of him. Humph! A bunch of bastards still want to find me? Later on, I was not even in the Tian Barbarian Continent. They couldn't find me even if they racked their brains. Senior, how did you get to the outer space? Speaking of this, the corners of the Duanmu Qingtian's mouth curled up slightly, and the spiritual pressure around his body began to surge. Su Yi once again felt the absolute pressure of a superior being. Extreme conditions can often stimulate the most terrifying potential. The Long family would never have dreamed that I would be able to master the art of driving the heavens to a new level, and it also directly increased my cultivation to the Yuan Tian realm. Su Yi's heart couldn't help but tremble when he felt a surge of powerful aura. Looking at the spiritual pressure bursting out of the Duanmu Qingtian's body, Su Yi also began to circulate the art of driving the heavens. Obviously, the Duanmu Qingtian's art of driving the heavens was not only extremely powerful, but also extremely powerful. It gave people a kind of desolate and ancient feeling of infinite pressure. It was as if the heaven and the earth were covered by it. It was a kind of absolute suppression. Young man, the art of driving the heavens that you and my sister have learned is flawed. When we were cultivating in the palace of driving the heavens, my sister and I discovered that there is still room for improvement in the art of driving the heavens. It's just that we haven't been able to comprehend it. What is my sister's cultivation level now? Su Yi nodded his chin and carefully thought about what the Duanmu Qingtian just said Xiao Man. She is now a half-step Yuan Tian realm cultivator. You keep calling her Xiao Man. Isn't it a little intimate? Duanmu Qingtian raised his eyebrows, a strange look in his eyes. At that moment, he was a little flustered. He frowned and said awkwardly, "It's Senior Xiao Man. I'm used to being rude. Senior is right." He did not want to tell the Duanmu Qingtian that the Duanmu Xiao Man had already become his wife. His brother-in-law was the #1 hero of the Sky Barbarians, so he did not dare to reveal his identity. Duanmu Qingtian winked at him. Hidden in his eyes was boundless tenderness and longing. "Is that so? Next time, you can't speak nonsense in front of me. You know how terrifying my sister is, right?" He could not help but nod his head and did not say anything. Duanmu Qingtian continued, "I've been running and hiding for the past 40 years. When I reached Yuan Tian stage, I happened to be in the vicinity of the barbarian demon forest. Especially when I reached the barbarian city, with my Yuan Tian stage cultivation, I could clearly feel that the energy of the domain pearl was very abnormal. And in order to end this life of running, Duanmu Qingtian used the energy of the domain pearl to mysteriously reach the outer space for the first time. That was the first time I reached the outer space. Since then, I have been traveling in the outer space. For more than 10 years, I have been calling myself a traveler." And later, Sui knew that the Duanmu Qingtian had returned to the Tian barbarian continent again. When Sui asked the reason, the Duanmu Qingtian said, "The Starfield God Investiture Ceremony is a grand event for all Starfields for 1,000 years. Coincidentally, I happened to run into it. As a Yuan Tian realm cultivator, I was very proud and went to participate. You know about the Bloodsword fruit, right? It is my spoils of war from the preliminary round. With the Bloodsword fruit on me, I thought of the existence of the Heavenly Wind Divine Sword. After the preliminary round, I hurriedly wanted to come back. And Duanmu Qingtian, who had already reached Yuan Tian realm, once again used the energy of the domain pearl to return to the Tian barbarian continent. The first time, I went there for no reason. When I came back, I was preparing to study the barbarian city properly. But once again, I attracted the pursuit of the Long family, and unknowingly attracted an even more terrifying person. Who is it? Even you, Senior, are afraid." He was shocked. "Someone from the outer space. I still don't know his name, but his cultivation base is much more terrifying than the one I met in the Starfield God Investiture Ceremony." Helpless, Duanmu Qingtian could only give up on studying the barbarian city and hurriedly threw the blood sword fruit into the broken sword lake. He was certain that the Heavenly Wind Divine Sword would be there. The broken sword lake is full of legends and is a great wonder of the cloud region. So, I set the Heavenly Wind Divine Sword as my first target. At this time, he was already rolling his eyes in his heart. He was furious in his heart. "Yes, just one sentence from you almost brought a lot of trouble to Yutian Palace, but you said it. Then, you met Suruga, who participated in the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament for the first time, and taught him the Heavenly Wind Sword intent, right?" Duanmu Qingtian was obviously excited. His eyes flashed, and he said in a deep voice, "You know that kid, Kwanga?" He nodded with a smile and said, "Looks like I don't need to take you as my master. In terms of seniority, Senior should be my grandmaster now." A burst of wild laughter spread in the air. The sound waves shook the fire essence vines until they loosened. Duanmu Qingtian's laughter grew bigger and bigger as he slammed the wrought tan table. "It's fate. So if you don't pass it on, who will?" "Ha ha ha." He sighed and continued. "Another 20 years passed. When Master met you again, you should have been heavily injured by the aristocratic families and the people from the other realms. Master saved you and sent the flowing image stone to the palace." A touch of ruthlessness and killing intent condensed in his eyes. Duanmu Qingtian recalled in a low voice, "Yes, it was that time that almost took my life. I agreed to meet the White Flood Dragon God in the barbarian city. I wanted to use the energy of the domain pearl to escape, but I didn't expect the White Flood Dragon God to sigh. Disappointment and sadness filled the air. Duanmu Qingtian said in an extremely gloomy voice, I used all my strength in the battle with the outer space people. Even without the domain pearl, I could still feel the existence of the barbarian city passageway. When I tried my best to open the space-time mezzanine, I was attacked by those bastards and was sealed in the space-time mezzanine. Duanmu Qingtian opened his hands and said in a low voice, After that battle, I was seriously injured. Although my cultivation was not affected, my whole body was similar to a remnant soul. I could no longer sense the existence of the space-time passageway, let alone withstand the energy storm of the space-time passageway. I could only live in this space-time mezzanine. The shock in Su Yi's heart grew stronger and stronger. He did not expect that there would be such a powerful force. Su Yi frowned and said, That person actually followed you to the Tianyin continent. Why? Chapter 1953. Duanmu Qingtian also had a puzzled look on his face. Logically speaking, he was just a traveler in the starfield. He did not belong to any sect or sect. How could he have provoked any enemies by participating in the god investiture ceremony? I have also thought about this question over and over again. I really don't understand. If you go back, you will also have to worry about that person. Su Yi nodded his head. His heart was very heavy. Duanmu Qingtian had been wandering around in his life. He could not help but hate the Long family. Can't you go back? Xiaoman, Senior has been looking for you for 100 years. She really wants you to go back. Hearing Su Yi's words, Duanmu Qingtian's angular and arrogant face finally flashed with a touch of sadness. Why wouldn't I want to go back? If you want to go back, you either have to let me recover or break the space-time mezzanine. Obviously, both methods were not practical. Duanmu Qingtian could not help but feel troubled. However, he said with a bitter smile, One day, I will be able to go back. If you can go back, tell sister not to worry about me. How can I go back? He curled his lips and scratched his ears and cheeks. Duanmu Qingtian flicked Su Yi's forehead and said in a low voice, Do you still remember the 2 time travel experiences I just mentioned? The first time, I was muddle-headed and used my half-step Yuan Tian cultivation to travel. The second time, although I did not have a realm pearl, I still opened a space-time tunnel. Yes, Senior, there must be a way. Su Yi suddenly became spirited. Duanmu Qingtian nodded his chin and closed his eyes. After a while, he opened his eyes and asked, My tunnel looks like a building from the outside, but it is extremely huge inside. Isn't that the 10 Jade building? Su Yi said in surprise. Instantly, an electric current flashed through his mind. Duanmu Qingtian's lips curled up, and a sly light flashed in his eyes. That's good. The 10 Jade building is a space-time tunnel, and this space-time tunnel was opened by the Tianfeng Martial Pavilion. This discovery made Su Yi's pores explode. However, after Duanmu Qingtian's analysis, it was logical and reasonable. My guess is that the Realm Pearl is the controller of the 10 Jade building. I don't know if the Tianfeng Martial Pavilion directly made it or not. To travel through the 10 Jade building, at least Yuan Tian stage. But with the Realm Pearl, one can summon the 10 Jade building. And it... At the same time, Su Yi thought of the rumor that the 10 Jade Pavilion would change every 60 years, and an idea popped up in his mind. Could it be that without the control of the Domain Pearl, the 10 Jade Pavilion, which was rich in spatial laws, would become chaotic and would appear at any place in the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean every once in a while? When was the last Tianfeng ranking tournament? Su Yi held his chin and muttered in a low voice. At this time, not only Duanmu Qingtian, but Qi Feihong's voice also became excited and said 2 words at the same time. Central Continent. The 2 of them looked at each other. If that's the case, the Tianfeng 10 Jade building appeared in the Central Continent at the same time in Duanmu Qingtian's Yuan Tian stage cultivation. Suddenly, Duanmu Qingtian stretched out his hand and signaled Su Yi to calm down. Then how do you explain my first time? Su Yi pursed his lips and covered his mouth with his hands, and said an even more unbelievable conclusion. The 10 Jade building will reappear in the human world every once in a while, and the rest of the time, it will be near the barbarian demon forest in the central continent. Duanmu Qingtian continued. With the domain pearl in hand, you can directly summon the 10 Jade pavilions that are originally stationed in Man's City and travel there. However, without the domain pearl, you can only rely on your cultivation base above Origin Sky Stage to travel to Man's City and travel there. The two of them reached a consensus again. How could a small barbarian city become the center of the heavenly barbarians' travel? Su Yi, who was already extremely excited, suppressed the excitement in his heart and tried his best to remain calm as he spoke with a calm expression. So, now that I have the domain pearl, I can definitely summon the space-time tunnel and return to the heavenly barbarian continent with the help of the 10 Jade building, right? That's right. I was already half a step into Yuan Tian stage at that time, and no one knows how much the domain pearl can reduce the cultivation required for travel, so we can only try again and again. So he kept nodding. He was so excited that he couldn't sit down. He walked around the room and almost wanted a hug and kissed Duanmu Qingtian. Next, I will give you special training in the space-time mezzanine until you can master the domain pearl. Su Yi's nose twitched, and he couldn't hide his excitement. At this time, hope was rekindled in his heart, and he said loudly, "Come on, I can't wait." Su Yi, who was very excited, couldn't wait to try. Suddenly, the faces of Draconis and Yun Zhongli appeared in front of him. Su Yi said directly, "Senior, how did you get to the space-time mezzanine of the Three Ravens region?" Speaking of this question, Duanmu Qingtian was also puzzled. His eyes trembled, and he said in a deep voice, "I spent decades in the space-time mezzanine of the heavenly barbarian continent. In the last few months, the rules of space-time began to change. One day, the sudden change consumed all the yuan qi I had accumulated before. Now I can't go back at all." Duanmu Qingtian shook his head with a bitter smile, and his eyes contained a strange look. Su Yi fell into deep thought, and his eyes narrowed. Duanmu Qingtian said, "Let's go. Come out and take a walk in the space-time mezzanine of the Three Ravens region." Following Duanmu Qingtian's footsteps out of the fire spirit-wrought tan room, a turbulent heat wave hit his face again, and his breathing was slightly unstable. The space in front of Su Yi was rippling constantly, and he subconsciously deceived his eyes. The golden sunlight shining down directly made Su Yi a little uncomfortable. This is only the space-time mezzanine. If it was the real Three Ravens region, the temperature would be enough to kill. Duanmu Qingtian curled his lips, and there was still a lingering fear in his eyes. "Grandmaster, you must have been to many star regions." Su Yi had some yearning. The world was vast, and traveling everywhere was also a kind of cultivation. Duanmu Qingtian nodded, and then the yuan qi whirlpool under his feet rose. He was high in the air, and his white robe fluttered in the wind. Circulate your yuan qi. Although the space-time mezzanine is a barren land, there are still some living creatures. I will take you to see them. Okay. Su Yi raised his eyebrows, and he immediately used the Fuyao 100 transformation steps. The fire wings on his back spun, his green robe fluttered, and his hair danced. He chased after the white light in front of him. Whoosh whoosh. The hot wind blew past him, and he swung his hands behind him. Like a ghost, he flashed through the space-time mezzanine of the Three Ravens region. Your Fuyao 100 transformation steps has reached the level of proficiency, but it is still far from the extreme realm. Su Yi followed closely behind, and the fire behind him shook, and he closed the distance by a large distance. Grandmaster is right. Chapter 1954. That day in the savage demon forest, when he received the Fuyao 100 transformation steps from the Duanmu Qingtian, Su Yi had been looking forward to it. According to the information, Su Yi knew that the ultimate speed of the Fuyao 100 transformation steps was absolutely terrifying. If he could cultivate it to the extreme, coupled with his own strength, he could completely tear space apart, pass through space and condense a pair of wings to soar into the sky. He could truly achieve the Fuyao 100 transformation steps and soar into the sky. However, the current Su-Yi was constantly in the process of chasing and killing. The wings he could use were extremely limited and could only be seen with the naked eye. Especially after obtaining the Cloud Shadow Frost steps, he relied more on movement techniques in actual combat. He had never really put in effort to cultivate the Fuyao 100 transformation steps. The movement technique you used to dodge my pressure was a little strange. Where did it come from? The Duanmu Qingtian's voice poured into Su-Yi's ears along with the roaring waves of fire. The origin qi in his meridians circulated rapidly. Su-Yi gathered all the origin qi in his chest and roared at the Duanmu Qingtian in the wind. It was also taught to me by a senior expert. It's very useful in actual combat. It's just that the Fuyao 100 transformation steps is more effective for long-distance attacks. The Duanmu Qingtian nodded and did not turn around. His aged voice quickly filled the air, causing the clouds to drift and waves of pressure to surge. This Fuyao 100 transformation steps was exchanged with me by a Yuan domain realm expert in exchange for a treasure from my imperial palace. It's a royal-grade movement technique. It's not too bad. When cultivated to the extreme, it's definitely not inferior to the one you're using. When the speed reaches the extreme, it can even tear space apart. Kid, you should cultivate the Fuyao 100 transformation steps these days. I'll bring you to a place. After saying that, the Duanmu Qingtian brought Su-Yi to the peak of a valley. The demonic aura below soared into the sky, and a primitive smell of wild beasts immediately surged up. Su-Yi was a little shocked. He licked his dry lips. Under the instructions of Duanmu Qingtian, he began to restrain his aura, hide his figure, and observe the situation in the valley. At the bottom of the valley, there were dozens of barbaric demonic beasts with demonic aura surrounding them. Every barbaric demonic beast was several zhang long. Their skin was like a wall of copper and iron, shining with a metallic luster. When the sun shone down on them, they gave off an intimidating aura. Roar! Bestial roars shook the heavens, and the valley trembled. Every barbaric beast's ferocious eyes were suffused with a scarlet glow. Their huge fangs pointed towards the heavens and earth. Just by approaching them, one could feel a violent demonic aura as if they were about to be eaten alive. His thick limbs moved back and forth on the cracked ground as if the earth was shaking. The demonic aura emitted from his nostrils was like a storm of wild beasts, tearing the ripples in the entire space apart. Bang, bang! A gigantic demonic beast lifted up a huge rock and chopped it into pieces as if it was chopping vegetables. The scattered rocks shot into the sky like cannonballs and landed heavily on the ground like meteorites. Large and small holes quickly formed. The air was filled with a bloody, killing aura. The violent and wild nature of the barbaric demonic beasts was fully displayed amidst the furious roars. Su-Yi deliberately used his Yuan Qi to transmit his voice. His eyes were burning as he looked towards Duanmu Qingtian. Senior, why are these barbaric demonic beasts so violent? Duanmu Qingtian chuckled softly. He crossed his arms behind his head and leaned against the cover. The environment here is dry, so it's normal for these low-level savage beasts to be irritable. There's another important reason, and that's because I've captured their young master. Then, he pointed to his stomach. Duanmu Qingtian's lips curled into a strange smile. He said softly, "The meat you roasted for me just now is their young master." His eyes almost fell out of his sockets. Su-Yi's mouth was wide open. He was extremely shocked. These barbaric demonic beasts are all at the demon ancestor realm. You actually captured their young master. Su-Yi cast his gaze towards the bottom of the valley once more. Upon closer inspection, he realized that even though every single one of the barbaric beasts looked very manic, they were still patrolling in an orderly manner. He didn't expect that they were actually looking for their young master. Suddenly, a bad premonition emerged in his heart. Duanmu Qingtian moved closer and whispered with his Yuan Qi. Isn't this all for your hard work? Do you think it's easy for me? Me. He felt as if his head was going to explode. Instantly, he was pressed down by Duanmu Qingtian. The Duanmu Qingtian's cold and stern gaze was fixed on Yi. Kid, I know you have the ability to make the barbaric demonic beast submit to you, but if you dare to use it on these demon ancestor realm barbaric demonic beasts, you're courting death. These low-level barbaric demonic beasts are more suitable for you. He started to feel apprehensive. Demon ancestor realm. That's the demon ancestor realm. The strongest enemy he had ever encountered was an origin ancestor realm practitioner. There were already dozens of demon ancestor realm practitioners in the valley. While he was still thinking, Duanmu Qingtian's voice sounded again, telling Yi about the barbaric demonic beasts. Although the space-time mezzanine was a barren land that was extremely unsuitable for humans to live in, it wasn't a problem for the barbaric demonic beasts that had extremely strong survival abilities. These barbaric demonic beasts had a unique way of absorbing and refining the energy of heaven and earth because of their strong survival abilities. Their cultivation was usually more than one level higher than the barbaric demonic beasts of the sky barbarian demonic beasts. Furthermore, in the space-time mezzanine, the barbaric demonic beasts had very few opportunities to transform. Thus, they usually moved around in their original forms. Have I made myself clear enough? Duanmu Qingtian's handsome face was smiling. The silver strands of hair on his temples flickered with a demonic aura. At this moment, Yi was rapidly searching for the demon, subduing illusionary tome in his mind. Even if there were barbaric demonic beasts that didn't exist in the sky barbarian continent, it was still better than being unprepared. My goodness, what kind of barbaric demonic beast is this? Why are there still flames under his skin? Qi Feihong's eyes were filled with shock. He was shocked to the extreme. Suddenly, Yi felt a chill in his heart. Even a sly old fox like Qi Feihong didn't know about this. He could only counter soldiers with arms and water with earth. Taking a deep breath, Yi nodded his head heavily. He raised his eyes and shot out a cold look. Then it's coming. In the next second, Yi felt a huge force pushing against his back. In an instant, Yi was sent flying. Without any hesitation, Yi turned into a streak of fire and flew over the barbaric demonic beast's head. He crashed into an empty space in the valley. When he looked at Duanmu Qingtian again, Yi's eyes were filled with panic. He gently raised his hand and gestured goodbye. Listen up, kid. When these five-legged golden flame beasts attack you, you can't fight back. You can only use the Fuyao's 100 transformation steps to dodge. You're also not allowed to use that strange martial arts of yours. Otherwise, I have ways to make them go crazy. When that happens, there will be dozens of origin grandmasters. It will be difficult for me to save you. Chapter 1955. There was no time for Yi to consider. The beasts roared, and the sound waves shook the heavens. In an instant, the sky began to tremble. Hundreds of pairs of eyes filled with killing intent locked onto him. Yi felt an unparalleled killing intent spreading from his back. Raising his spirits, he suppressed the excitement in his heart and quickly circulated the art of controlling the heavens. The beasts roared and the earth shook. Below the valley, dozens of demon ancestor realm barbaric beasts stomped their huge hooves and charged over. Their voices shook the abyss and reverberated through space. In an instant, the entire valley began to tremble under a huge wave of energy. The barbaric beasts roared and unleashed their full strength. Their ferocious demonic aura reached its peak, and they all transformed into giant war chariots that charged towards Yi. Under the golden light, their fangs were dripping with blood, and their baleful aura was at its peak. The blood and qi in his body began to churn, and the huge mass of beasts in front of him gave Yi an extreme shock. Forcefully suppressing the churning of his blood and qi, Yi quickly formed a hand seal. A fiery whirlpool appeared under his feet, and he flapped his wings, turning into a streak of fire as he fled towards the horizon. Awoo! Su-yi rose rapidly, and the demon ancestor realm beasts below him began to shrink. The five-legged golden flame beast leaped high into the air, and its fangs slashed through the air. A fiery red, demonic chi shot out like a blade, forming a huge yuan chi claw that grabbed towards Su-yi. Chi. At the same time, the five-legged golden flame beast's rough skin fluttered in the wind, and a formless and terrifying aura spread out from under its skin. Chi-la. No one would have thought that such a huge and clumsy, five-legged golden flame beast could run so nimbly. The flames that had just surged out had burned more than half of his green robe, and the soles of his shoes were also completely burnt. Standing in the air, Su-yi was in an extremely sorry state. When Su-yi reached the safe zone for the time being, an earth-shattering pressure came from above his head, forcing him to walk downwards. "Are you forcing me to fight with the beasts?" "Grandmaster," Su-yi shouted in a deep voice. His unyielding eyes glanced fiercely at Duanmu Qingtian. He was struggling with all his might, and the veins on his arms were bulging. His slightly bulging muscles glowed under the sunlight, and the bloody scars on his charred back made him look even more ferocious. "I've already set up a pressure restriction around the valley, and the range of this pressure will continue to shrink. If you can't cultivate the Rising Yao's 100 transformation steps to the extreme within the stipulated time, when you land on the ground, you can only wait for your death." Duanmu Qingtian radiated a cold aura as his gaze landed on the howling, demonic beasts below the mountain valley. His eyes gleamed with malevolence as a cold light flickered on his skin. Dang dang! Another wave of barbarian beasts attacked. Dozens of five-legged golden flame beasts kept crashing into the ground, causing the space to ripple. Under the terrifying impact, Su-yi's expression changed drastically. Retracting his aura, Su-yi quickly calmed down. In such a terrifying environment, the flames of the barbarian beasts were able to extend the range of their attacks. The most important thing now was to avoid the flames and increase the speed of the Rising Yao's 100 transformation steps. When the barrier shrank to the extreme, that would be the most important moment to cultivate the Rising Yao's 100 transformation steps. Opening his eyes, Su-yi was filled with a chilly aura. The will to fight rose in his heart, and his skin and meridians began to heat up rapidly. Boom! In that instant, Su-yi's eyes were filled with a scarlet light, as though there were blazing flames in them. Su-yi's body also emitted a revolutionary aura, as though a ferocious beast that had been dormant for a long time had suddenly awakened. He took off the green robes on his back, and in the scorching air, the green robes quickly turned into sparks and scattered. So, another dozen tongues of flames surged from all directions, bringing with them the scorching aura in the surroundings. The sealed mountain valley was like a blazing furnace, and Su-yi was constantly being tested by the heat. Punk! The five-legged golden flame beast did not stop in the slightest. Its huge body directly jumped up and smashed towards Su-yi. It opened its mouth wide, and another stream of flames spewed out from its mouth, releasing a ferocious aura. So, without any hesitation, Su-yi's feet tapped lightly on the ground, and the aura on his body rose rapidly. Dense veins flashed in the air, and he shuttled back and forth in the flaming tornado. Shio, fresh blood splattered everywhere, and several long lines of blood flew high into the air. The sound of blood evaporating and solidifying filled the air, causing one's heart to tremble. Endless flames enveloped the mountain valley from all four directions, and the violent flaming tornado spread out along with the wind. It was like a huge tornado. Anything that stayed in the tornado for a few breaths of time would be burned to the extreme. Standing on top of the mountain valley and looking down at Su-yi's dancing flames, a sinister smile appeared on his face. If not for this body's excellent strength, there wouldn't be many people in this world who would be able to cultivate like this. Brat, you'll definitely thank me in the future. After saying that, Duanmu Qingtian sat down on a huge rock and observed the changes in the mountain valley with a calm expression. Gee, Ao! The beast roared, and the sound waves pierced through the mountain valley. Violent Yuan Qi stirred up a spatial storm. The demon ancestor realm flames were like lightning, incomparably violent. The huge tongues of flames were mixed with a ferocious aura. Within the flames, one could see with the naked eye. The shadows of ferocious beasts flashed repeatedly. The heavens and earth shook, and the beasts roared. An incomparably huge ravine quickly formed in the mountain valley, and the wind from the flames surged in all directions. The sounds of energy colliding rang out, and very quickly, the mountain valley was a complete mess. Just like that, Su Yi endured for half a day. When Duanmu Qingtian opened his eyes again, the energy light around him was still the same, but the smell of blood in the air had lessened by a lot. This meant that Su Yi had already started to get used to the void and the five-legged golden flame beast attacks. The energy enveloping Su Yi's body also started to emit a domineering aura of majesty and destruction. His speed became faster and faster, and the ferocious aura spread out. Su Yi was like a butterfly, shuttling freely through the net of flames. The chances of him being hit also became smaller and smaller. Isn't that brat's ability to adapt a little too perverse? Duanmu Qingtian was stunned for a moment. His gaze was fixed on the flames in the mountain valley, and he almost didn't recover from his shock. Come on, continue. Stupid thing. Come and kill me. Su Yi stepped out, and the bloodstains on his body were extremely eye-catching. His eyes were also incomparably red, and the aura around him was no different from the barbaric beasts. It was equally ferocious and violent. A stern and majestic voice shot out from Su Yi's mouth, mixed with the language of the beasts. In an instant, the beasts below became even more frenzied and violent. Hoo-hoo! Countless muffled sounds rang out, and a series of sonic booms rang out in the sky. The air was also completely destroyed by the flames. Chapter 1956. Let's go. With a roar, Su Yi's flaming wings flapped even faster. His speed also increased exponentially as he sped towards an empty space. If anyone was present, they would definitely be shocked to the point that their hair would stand on end. Su Yi was actually able to cope with death with just his movement technique. In the blink of an eye, more than half a day had passed. A deep and ancient voice rang out from the valley again, instantly drowning out the sound of the five-legged golden flame beast. Looks like I have to increase the difficulty for you. Brat, take this properly. Bang. Suddenly, an extremely oppressive aura swept across the sky and pressed down on his head rapidly. Su Yi's eyes trembled. He had promised Duanmu Qingtian that he would not use the Origin Supreme technique. But Su Yi had no choice but to activate the art of heaven control to maintain his consciousness. Under the sharp gaze, Su Yi raised his head and his aura became unusually violent. With a roar, he took the initiative to fly towards the group of beasts below. Instead of being forced to go down, he might as well take the initiative to attack. Stupid thing, come on. Kill your grandpa. The group of beasts below roared continuously. When they felt Su Yi's shocking killing intent, they trembled in fear. In the next moment, even crazier roars resounded through the sky, as if they were fighting against each other. Su Yi's body continued to descend, and his speed increased continuously. Within the valley, dozens of demon ancestor realm beasts charged towards Su Yi like small hills. Whoosh whoosh. Su Yi's body continued to descend until he started to fly close to the ground. His eyes lit up, and he suddenly increased his speed to the maximum, flying parallel to the ground. A chilling aura gushed out continuously. Su Yi moved back and forth like a fire spirit amidst the rampaging beasts. Chila. The surging flame energy in the air could no longer trap Su Yi. When Su Yi brushed past the group of beasts like a fish in water, a powerful shadowless attack flew towards Su Yi's abdomen. Bang! The heavy blow felt as if heaven and earth were falling apart. In a split second, Su Yi, who had suffered a heavy blow, felt as if he had been hit by a cannonball. His internal organs were all congealed together. Su Yi's mind went blank, and a feeling of dizziness took over his divine sense. Su Yi's figure staggered in the huge jungle of muscles. Brat, focus your mind. The fifth leg of the five-legged golden flame beast refers to its energy attack. Endure it. Clenching his teeth, Su Yi rubbed the wound on his chest. The intense pain woke Su Yi up instantly. At the same time, the fire wings on Su Yi's back once again condensed. Within the huge mountain of muscles, Su Yi's body constantly twisted and turned. Yuan Qi rapidly circulated through the thick meridians in his body, and his aura once again skyrocketed. There was only one goal in Su Yi's mind right now, and that was to escape. With a cold gaze, Su Yi did not have the time to care about the heavy injuries from the previous attack. He quickly formed a hand seal, and the cloud shadow treading frost was activated. An icy cold aura quickly condensed in front of him, and in an instant, it turned into a clear ice crystal. Dangerously close, Su Yi's entire body was wrapped in a film of ice, and in an instant, he turned into an afterimage and passed through the five-legged golden flame beast's attack. After opening up a large distance, Su Yi wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes blazed, and he raised his eyebrows. Five-legged golden flame beast, you're courting death. With a loud roar, Su Yi's Yuan Qi surged out. With a light tap of his foot, he slid through the air. Immediately, a blazing aura surged under his feet, and he charged directly into the group of beasts. After understanding the five-legged golden flame beast attack style, Su Yi was 120% focused this time and quickly dealt with the overwhelming attack. Pung pung pung. In another head-on clash, Su Yi's flaming wings spun rapidly to the extreme. In his mind, his understanding of the Skyward Hunter transformation steps had also reached a new peak. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, the five elements push each other. The seven stars shine brightly. The heavenly principle is the most powerful. The heavens shake and the earth revolve. The Skyward Hunter transformation thousandly. Let me ascend to immortality. The true light lingers. Ride the dragon in the sky. The sun and the moon shine together. The lightning on the left, the thunder on the right, the evil on the earth. Dare to chase after death. Chi Chi. The group of beasts looked at Su Yi, who was dodging with ease, and mumbled incessantly. They could feel their aura exploding continuously, and their strength could be said to have reached the point of destruction. Immediately, they spat out flames from their mouths, and their aura became even more ferocious. Above the void, an energy storm formed by endless flames swept over like a tide of beasts. At this moment, Su Yi was stepping on the void. Light and shadow overlapped in front of him, and his consciousness flowed into his movement technique. Everything in front of him seemed to have become extremely slow. When he looked up again, a mysterious hand seal had formed in front of Su Yi. Ride the dragon in the sky. The Skyward Hunter transformation. His gaze was cold, and divine light shrouded him. The fire element divine rings surged, and Su Yi's aura was extremely terrifying. At the same time, the fiery red wings on his back changed continuously. The color turned from fiery red to transparent, and the range was also shrinking continuously. It was like a pair of extremely small wings, making it difficult for others to notice. Break! At this moment, it had been a full day since Su Yi entered the valley. The elemental energy around him exploded, and in an instant, he passed through the group of beasts. This kid's comprehension is still so shocking. At this rate, he will be at the peak of his cultivation by tomorrow morning. I can totally increase the difficulty. Leaning against a huge rock, Duanmu Qingtian's eyes were filled with astonishment. Su Yi's talent and physical strength had made this number one person in the Sky Barbarian realm look at him in a different light. He watched as he was continuously hit and crawled up. While he was in a sorry state, his aura became more and more stable. The blazing aura that swept through the heavens shook the heavens. Duanmu Qingtian's eyes did not have the slightest bit of pity. He turned and disappeared in another direction. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Under the inky blue night sky, there were continuous explosions in the valley. The surrounding space was distorted and collapsed, directly collapsing into the quiet void. The Three Ravens region at night was colder than any other place in the Sky Barbarian realm. In the valley, before the dew could condense, it was directly evaporated by the fiery aura. After a continuous night of training and shuttling, he went from being unskilled at the beginning to being able to move freely. He kept trying, and his chest began to cave in because of the heavy blows. He did not care about all of this. His eyes were red, and he had entered a state of selflessness. He had already lost his sense of pain, and mysterious runes were constantly condensing around his body. Pucci, he staggered back a few hundred meters. Every time he retreated, the ground of the valley cracked and a terrifying gully appeared. When his body was clearly limp to the extreme, he was always able to squeeze out energy from his meridians and dantian. His knees were clearly trembling, but as long as he had a little bit of strength to move, he would once again throw himself into the group of beasts. In this cycle, the night of the Three Ravens region gradually disappeared, and the sky gradually turned white. The sparse stars hung high in the distance, and 3 golden suns were faintly discernible in the thin fog. Chapter 1957. Standing in the midst of the dozens of barbaric demon beasts, the scarlet, demonic chi mixed with the wind billowed towards bay foam. He was like a fully awakened, ferocious beast, running back and forth between the jungle of muscles. The wings on his back were completely transparent, and from the speed of the ripples in the air, he had already cultivated the 100 transformation steps to the pinnacle of perfection. His figure was agile, and as fast as lightning, he dashed through the air lightly. Only a trace of light could be seen, and the demon ancestor realm, 5-legged golden flame, beast, lost its sense of direction. Roar! The roar of the beast shook the heavens, and the demonic chi soared to the sky. After a day and night of endless torture, Su Yi's body had become even more translucent from the nourishment of the primordial dragon's aura. His entire body was like jade, shining with an ancient luster. On the other hand, the barbaric demon beasts in front of him were starting to show signs of exhaustion. Every 5-legged golden flame, beast raised its hooves high and stomped heavily on the ground. Their eyes were red, and flames seemed to be seeping out of them as they stared at Su Yi with killing intent. Su Yi's eyes narrowed as he looked at the slightly brightening sky. Senior is not only tempering my movement technique, he's also reshaping my body. Now that these demonic beasts are starting to run out of energy, it's the best time to slaughter them. Pucci. Waves of heat surged, and scorching flames spewed out from the mouths of the 5-legged golden flame beasts. The flames under their skin had dimmed to varying degrees. Suyi's plan was to kill all these 5-legged golden flame beasts in one fell swoop. These barbaric demon beasts were all genuine demon ancestor realm demonic cores. If I want to break through quickly, other than cultivation, demonic cores are also essential. He licked his dry lips as a greedy light flashed in his eyes. The temperature on the ground gradually rose, and the golden sun in the sky had already emerged from the thin mist. When the first ray of sunlight broke through the clouds and shone into the valley, boom! The leading 5-legged golden flame beast suddenly let out a terrifying roar, and the sound waves seemed to be calling for an ancient deity. The roar was filled with extreme anger, and Su Yi was pushed back by another 1,000 meters. One after another, the entire valley began to tremble as if it had contracted a plague. 1, 2, 3. The 5-legged golden flame beasts' auras became even more ferocious and savage. Their flame energy soared, and the air around them began to disintegrate. Su Yi staggered to his feet. His eyes trembled as he shouted in his heart, "Not good." During the day, the energy of the five-legged golden flame beast will skyrocket. In an instant, the valley, which was already in ruins, began to crumble. The five-legged golden flame beast, which was brimming with vitality, roared nonstop. The net of fire was dense, and the terrifying fire attribute energy directly turned into an incomparably huge waterfall that swept across the entire world. Dong, dong, dong. As if he was sitting on a trampoline, Su Yi's body kept shaking. Such a terrifying force made the void tremble. "Kill him, or we won't be able to escape today." Coldness shot out from the depths of his eyes. Su Yi glanced at the valley. Duanmu Tian had not returned yet. Twisting his neck, Su Yi formed a hand seal, and Yuan Qi surged out from his body. A cold light flashed in his eyes as the blood demon, killing god, sword slashed out from his palm. Pong! A torrential wave of blood condensed, and the blood runes on the sword glinted coldly. Su Yi rested the heavy sword on his shoulder, and a seemingly disharmonious feeling caused the dozens of five-legged golden flame beasts to stop in their tracks. Their eyes were filled with shock. Su Yi bellowed in his heart as a fierce killing aura spread through the air, followed by the scorching ripples in the air. "Kill! Kill to your heart's content." Su Yi's eyes flickered, and a fiery aura surged out from his body. A blood-red light flashed in his hand as he activated the Origin Supreme technique. Boom! The extreme, rising Heaven Hunter transformation steps was executed. With the help of his movement skill, Su Yi was like a little bird circling around a group of beasts. The heavy sword slashed down, and in a short moment, fiery spatial runes shot out like a tsunami. Su Yi was still pushed back by the dozens of beasts. In the next moment, Su Yi quickly formed hand seals. The four types of energy light of earth, water, wind, and fire shot up to the sky. In an instant, an ancient aura spun in the void. Then, for soul shadows were arranged. Su Yi no longer dared to be careless. The golden dragon runes on his body shone brightly, and the demon god battle armor covered his entire body. At this moment, Su Yi's battle prowess was fully unleashed. Boom! The air was instantly filled with killing intent and terror. Violent winds blew as fast as lightning, and the heavenly might swept over. The cumulus clouds in the distance surged and blocked the three golden suns completely. Wiping the words from his mouth, Su Yi stood in the air once again. Behind him, the wind started to blow, and the clouds started to blow. The golden dragon runes in his eyes shone brightly. With a point of his sword, the sky was filled with sword shadows, and the void along the way collapsed. Demonic spirit sword technique. The surging sword shadows were filled with energy. The demonic spirit sword technique was born from the heavenly demon ancient scripture. The sword technique was connected to the spirit, and its range was extremely wide. When used, there was nowhere to hide. The wind blade-like sword shadows slashed through the wall of fire and directly slashed at the five-legged golden flame beast. The energy sword was directly deflected into the sky. Waves of berserk energy ripples accompanied the beast's violent charge. Su Yi hurriedly dodged a distance, and the hill behind him suddenly turned into dust. No, these beasts' flesh is too strong. The demonic spirit sword technique can't break through. Following that, a demonic spirit beast charged out of the pit, and the void along the way was distorted. Kill as many as you can. Su Yi calmed himself down, and the image of the Emperor Sparrow appeared behind him again. Golden flames appeared around him, and the Emperor Sparrow's eyes were like divine flames looking down on all living beings. The moment the five-legged golden flame beast stopped, Su Yi used the blood phoenix split the heavens. Unparalleled sword chi spread out, and the void trembled. Boom! The powerful attack caused the dozens of five-legged golden flame beasts' souls to tremble, and their eyes to widen in fear. With a loud sound, Su Yi's heavy sword was stabbed into the wall. He held onto the sword hilt and panted heavily. The first five-legged golden flame beast fell to the ground with a loud thud, and its demonic chi dissipated. Its body emitted an oppressive aura. Brat, you're finished. These five-legged golden flame beasts won't rest until they're dead. Today, you'll have to kill all of them. An ancient voice came from above the valley. He raised his head and glared at the Duanmu Qingtian. Don't look at me like that. This is the real test. You'll have to use your movement techniques in battle. Your sword is not bad. Now, let's begin your sword training. Huchi. The blood phoenix split the heavens was extremely powerful, and it had already exhausted half of Su Yi's will. There were still dozens of five-legged golden flame beasts in front of him. If he couldn't circulate his yuan qi, he would definitely die. Learn to use the sword will. You're Suruga's disciple, so you should know the power of the sword will. You're still far from reaching the stage where you can become one with the sword. Use the sword will and martial arts alternately. The Duanmu Qingtian held a tree branch in his mouth, and his eyes were calm. Taking a deep breath, he took out half a bottle of spiritual liquid from his storage bag. His yuan qi flowed continuously from his meridians to his great void spirit sea. The second step, the training of the sword will. Chapter 1958. Yi bellowed, and a strong killing intent surged out from his body. His eyes shone brightly. Thinking about the sword intent that he had comprehended in the broken wall of the divine sword sect that day, the blood demon killing God sword in his hand instantly released a boundless sword wave, his eyes bursting with radiance. Yi waved the heavy sword so that even the wind and rain could not penetrate it. In an instant, the dozens of demon ancestor realm beasts were separated. The sword light shot out, shaking the entire valley. Duanmu Qingtian had told Yi that sword intent was the will of a weapon. Like soul skills, it was also driven by soul energy. But compared to pure soul attacks, sword intent was not only an absolute suppression of the soul, it was also a physical attack caused by the fusion of the weapon and the user. Therefore, since ancient times, all the martial artists who were able to cultivate sword intent were heroes who had great achievements in the martial Tao. Brat, when you go to a mid-grade star field called the Sword King Divine Domain in the future, you will know that there are actually people who can use sword intent to move mountains and seas, destroying heaven and earth. Yi kept dodging between the beasts and swung the blood demon killing god sword with all his might. The scarlet sword light surged like waves, shooting down from the sky, using all the strength in his body to swing the heavy sword. Yi was surprised to find that when the sword intent was used, the yuan qi in his body was not consumed at all. And when his soul energy was exhausted, Yi would circulate his yuan qi again. Back and forth, Yi's blood, flesh, and meridians were also being tempered by the sword intent, undergoing a baptism and edification. Blood runes filled the air, and the treasured sword hummed. Mysterious runes slowly floated out from Yi's body. Holding the long sword in his hand, he slashed out, and an earth-shattering sword wave swept through the sky. The energy that was pushed out was so powerful that it could cut through everything. It forcefully separated him from the barbaric beast, creating a huge gap between him and the barbaric beast. He was sweating profusely. The alternating use of yuan qi and soul energy caused Yi's physical strength to deplete rapidly. However, there was no trace of panic in Yi's eyes. Excitement and agitation appeared in Yi's eyes. Propping up the heavy sword, he obtained a bit of space and cast his gaze towards the Duanmu Qingtian above the valley. Senior, how should I cultivate sword intent? Duanmu Qingtian shook his head, not at all moved by the fierce battle below, but his voice was extremely loud, echoing in the valley for a long time. There's a heavenly punishment sword mountain in the Myriad Sword Alliance. The sword chi there is extremely strong, but it's also a good place to cultivate sword intent. There are only two ways to cultivate sword intent. One is to be still, and the other is to be active. The quiet way is to hibernate among the thousands of swords and comprehend the mysteries of the sword. The active way is to become one with the sword and comprehend the infinity of the sword. Duanmu Qingtian stretched out 2 fingers, his eyes darkened, and the corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a smile. Seeing that Su Yi still didn't understand, Duanmu Qingtian's eyes flashed, and he said again, "You're still not familiar with the basics of using the sword. You can't even move the heavy sword as you wish, so how can you cultivate sword intent? Swords and sabers have the same Tao. Humans have the heart and soul, and swords have the sword spirit. Those who can reach the pinnacle of sword intent are able to communicate with the sword spirit. Can you do it now?" Roar. Another huge 5-legged golden flame beast with huge fangs dashed over, causing the ground to tremble. Immediately, Su Yi's chest was hit by an extremely heavy flame. Blood dripped from his body, and his face was as pale as ash. He roared and swung his saber down. As his body flew backwards, a sword ray shot out in a straight line. Extreme Phantom Slaying Blade. In the blink of an eye, Su Yi shouted in the valley. As his sword fell, another 5-legged golden flame beast fell to the ground, unable to get up. A strong wind blew, and dust scattered everywhere. In the valley, countless sounds of impact resounded. The muffled sounds were like thunder, and countless sparks filled the air. At this time, Su Yi's chest was heaving up and down like a bellows, but his mind was constantly replaying Duanmu Qingtian's words. Familiarize yourself with a heavy sword. Communicate with the sword spirit. Deep in thought, Su Yi held the blood demon, slaying God, sword tightly in his hand. He gradually poured his heart and soul into the heavy sword, combining it with the basics of the saber that he had learned. Gradually, a vast energy screen was arranged around Su Yi. The heavy sword hummed, and sword shadows stretched out. Soon, a simple light was produced between his body and the sword. After familiarizing himself with the weight of the blood demon, slaying God's sword, Su Yi once again gently touched the sword. The art of driving the heavens was activated, and he immediately entered a state of enlightenment. Bestial roars shook the sky, and waves of fire filled the sky. At this time, other than taking a step forward, Su Yi's mind was completely focused on the blood demon slaying God's sword. In a split second, the tragic scene of millions of corpses and rivers of blood appeared in front of Su Yi's eyes. The blood-red scene filled with killing intent made Su Yi's heart tremble for no reason. Su Yi had once relied on the energy of the blood demon slaying God's sword to repel the powerful enemies of the undying sect. Similarly, because the energy was too strong, he almost lost his life. If he wanted to completely conquer the blood demon slaying God's sword, he had to completely conquer the mysterious energy of the blood demon slaying God's sword. Boom! In his heart and soul, it was as if there was an ancient energy pulling at it. The pain made all the pores on Su Yi's body expand. A terrifying evil aura made Su Yi's eyes gradually turn scarlet red. Learn to get close to it, adapt to it, and get used to its existence. This is the first step. Circulating the art of driving the heavens, Su Yi's mind was in turmoil. His figure gradually stepped into the blood veil of Jihu's sect. Then his eyes were filled with dazzling red light, and a thick blood aura filled his mind. Huff! Su Yi tried to surround himself with a blood aura. With the experience of fighting against the blood dragon, Su Yi's tiger eyes turned solemn. Quietly circulating the Origin Supreme technique, Su Yi raised the blood demon, slaying God's sword above his head. Borrowing the power of the blood demon, slaying God's sword, he quickly slashed in front of him. Boom! Break! As soon as his voice fell, a murderous intent flashed across Su Yi's deep eyes. The tiger claw on his right hand condensed a bloody light, and a monstrous sword aura flashed across the sky. As the sword aura flashed past, a terrifying blood-red light seeped out from the surroundings. The blood-red saber light was like a vertical space vortex that suddenly slashed out. The dazzling light struck the heavens and the earth. When Su Yi's eyes regained their clarity, The corpses of 4 five-legged golden flame beasts had already fallen in front of him. Wherever the saber light passed, the void along the way collapsed, and a large area of space was directly destroyed. Endless sword aura seeped out from the void, and the heavenly might was vast and mighty. So powerful. The remaining beasts were filled with fear and did not dare to move forward. Su Yi's heart was in a state of turmoil, and he could not regain his senses. You have already started to familiarize yourself with this sword and know how to use its power. The next step is to communicate with the sword spirit inside and start the real cultivation of the sword will. Su Yi nodded his head. His gaze fell on the blood demon slaying God's sword, and the domineering and destructive blood aura was fully displayed. All right, slightly puffing out his chest, Su Yi was pleasantly surprised that he could use the power of the blood demon slaying God's sword. At the same time, he glanced at Duanmu Qingtian from the corner of his eyes. It was as if Duanmu Qingtian already knew that there was a sword spirit inside the sword. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.